actually gets involved, dunks on to GMB, and he's gonna dunk on player one as well.
Pulls in 40 mortals as well, and the wall bank comes through from Kohler, so the headshot, a sick falls down. 2 more to go. Damage still alive with Sinatra, but just under. A 4K coming through. That's a 1 versus 1. Sinatra here, can he get the ace clutch? Recon Owl to come out. Now he's Swanson. He's straight through the box. He gets the frag onto Asuna, and the ace clutch coming in.
Who is this guy? Like, this isn't even Valorant. This is just Wardell's mind. He's just dominating that much. Drone opening up the kill for Wardell to get the ace kill. That's exactly
Wardell's like, give it to me, give it to me.
Boys and girls, welcome back here to the Pulse Series with Vancil, your host. And again, I did a bad shout out for our sponsor, so let's restart and do it again. Sponsored by AK Racing, AGX Pay, and Fair Play. AK Racing, they do their own chairs, they do their own design, and they also do their own testing in-house to make sure you guys have the best gaming chair experience. Also, AGX Play, it's an application. You put your gold and your silver on that app, load it up, and use it. So I guess it's a way to trade it, get some money. I'll have to check it out. But for last and not least, it's got to be Fair Play. They've been actually doing sporting solutions for a lot of sports teams for a vast number of years now, and are looking to dabble into esports. So they're looking to provide esports solutions now to up-and-coming companies as well. And last but not least, of course, to the Pulse Esports Arena. It's not only them doing this virtually for these tournaments, but they're also looking to build state-of-the-art facilities in North America for the best of the best to compete, hone your skills, and become the number one. With that, let's bring in our hosts and analysts. Why do I keep saying host and analyst when
you keep bringing yourself in, dude?
Nobody will mind.
Actually, if you look at this transition, the host comes back with the analyst. So I'm like 50-50 right, you know? I'm never wrong. When I lose, I always win. Part of my last name. I could have my own like monologue for a whole show, but anyways, let's talk about this match coming up, guys. What's up?
I said I watch, just so we're clear.
Thanks, man. No, man, you'd be too busy playing Diabolical, and I'll be watching you instead, you know? But it's going to be Rise versus LG coming up here in this one. Rise and LG. Let's give an introduction about these teams, right? So, because the match is going to be happening fairly soon right now, we're loading up that lobby. So, Rise, they are a roster that started off as CLT Phoenix when they had Flowers, Churms, Spirit, KZ, and I think they brought in Shots at that point. They wanted to bring a veteran mind from Counter-Strike experience, also Call of Duty experience, and then hopefully with the tactical shooter experience, help this team move forward. Didn't work out, took out Flowers, brought in Anger, who has a lot of experience from CS Source, being a top player playing with Team Dynamic that were winning events in the CS Source days, and of course playing CS:GO where you play with as well, Lex. And then they didn't unfortunately have that many results as well. They went up and down out of groups but never went far. So they dropped Shots. They brought in Shuker. They also brought in the Bears. Losing the Bears, now they have 2 new tryouts coming into this event, and are actually doing quite great. 4-0 out of groups. And we haven't had a chance to really see them yet, right? The only match that they casted was against Shiba. Shiba went 0-4. So we don't really know the real value of it. But if they actually did go 4-0 in their groups, they're here to play.
Yeah, I mean, Rise itself, with the addition of Ange and Riku, I mean, you mentioned the veteran CS minds on the squad in the Bears, and you have Anger there as well, who's got an extensive career. I think that's like, personally, I went out of my way playing Valorant a little bit to play with guys from other games. And I think like there was a lot of dialogue and conversations early on about like, can other players that aren't Counter-Strike players breaking into the game? And Charlotte Phoenix was one of the first teams that like I saw get formed around. I mean, you could maybe mention Sentinels as well, but one of those teams that had 1 or 2 veteran CS players and then surrounded it with talent from other games. You know, I really love teams that have that kind of a composition, just because you have such a wide spread of experience and talent that you know you can't account for in Counter-Strike. So for Rise, like they have so much talent and individual skill, being able to kind of bring that together into a team. You know, having the Bears, one of the most you know, I'll say intelligent Counter-Strike minds in North America, having him as a Valorant coach is so valuable. And so I think Rise going 4-0 in their groups isn't a fluke. That's not a mistake. I think this team's really good. And KZ on the other side over in Luminosity, like I wonder whether or not they're going to be almost out for blood here. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna be completely honest. And shout out to Reem in the chat, the guy that runs Rise, right? The thing about Rise is like you take a look at every single game that they're in, whether it's Call of Duty or what. Call of Duty is a perfect example. And Lex, you know Call of Duty, right? When they picked up, I think it was Slasher at the time. Just they love picking up talent that's just diamonds in the rough, and they turn out to be just quality towards the end, right? So take a look at this roster and what we saw yesterday. There's two players that really caught my eye. I definitely love the Cypher play coming in from Terms. The man goes positive. I love Cyphers that go positive, by the way. So shout out to him. And also Angry. I really liked Angry because that was the first time we really got to break down like really excessive breach play this event. And he does a really good job. And the one thing that he did so well yesterday, controlling the pace. If you can control the pace, you control everything in the game. It doesn't matter what sport or game that it is. And as long as Anger can do that, while franking out, going positive all the time with Breach, I mean, that's a positive, right? I think this Rise team has a chance at winning against anybody.
Yeah. Well, if it's anybody, it's a big test though, guys, because it's LG and LG. They after seeing them yesterday, I've kind of become a believer to probably say that these guys might go all the distance, right? I mean, Venerated coming into the roster, KZ switching over to Rise, from Rise over to this. They have a Jet main now. They could go for a double op setup if they want to. They don't need that much of an introduction because from that announcement yesterday on Twitter from LG with KZ and Venerated, it already added so much into this core that we currently have. So let's talk about how they played from yesterday, from what we saw when they played. So starting off with your thoughts here, Belly.
I mean, it's simple. Thief. Like, I'm still thinking of the line that I said where Thief stole my heart, right? Thief has been the standout for me. But ultimately, KZ's outplay has been just second to none, especially for this roster. I'm really happy that they picked him up because you and Lex said really good things about KZ. And I was like, okay, let me see what this guy is really about. So his play is phenomenal. Venerated, I haven't seen Venerated in the forefront hogging all the kills like he did for 100 Thieves when he was always at the top, right? Just about. But him being passive and calling shots, and you see how they take their time whenever they try to retake a site and make sure Venerated gets all the shock darts out, make sure Venerated, make sure that everything is set up right. You can see the tactical awareness on this roster now that Venerated is in. And I'm happy that they're playing with him, starting off with the first game of the day today. So we can now see how this team works, after a full night of sleep and the first game together, first and second game together on the main stream. Hopefully they just fire off on all cylinders once more.
Yeah, I think for me, LG, like, part of what made them interesting yesterday, and I expect this to be the case today as well. You mentioned Thief. Like, his Reyna and Omen play both were just top notch. But rounding out the support class, I mean, you had a Proto, I think, is on the Cypher on all maps, maybe, or at least on most. At the end of the day, I saw them at the top of the scoreboard frequently. You mentioned, like, haven't seen Venerated up in the forefront, hogging all the kills. Like, you're exactly right, man. But I wonder whether or not this is going to be a new role and situation for him where he's surrounded by all the talent that he needs. And suddenly this team like is able to rise and oh, wow, that's
so important.
Luminosity is going to rise. Yeah, totally. No. Pun intended indeed. Jet having a Jet Opera in KZ, having a Cypher that's going to top frag for you. Like, you have all the tools. And now you just added in a Sova who's, by anyone's measure, one of the most dominant Sovas and Operas in North America. So to me, this seems like LG's game, despite the fact that Rise played so well yesterday. And I think there's so many good things we could say about Rise and how I think they're on the having a meteoric rise of their own, and certainly maybe have been, I don't even know if underwhelming is necessarily the incomplete, probably is what I would say in the past, right? Like, and now they're making roster changes to kind of round that roster out. Like, I still think Luminosity has like just all the pieces already. So maybe LG, both these teams having limited time to prepare with either rosters. I wonder whether or not, just based on skill, Luminosity can take this 2-0. But we'll see.
I was actually about to bring that up. Go ahead.
You guys actually corrected me too, because I was talking yesterday when we were doing post game and pregame, and it shows that I zoned out while I was watching this match, and I was like, yeah, Thief did a very good job just lurking, because I remember Thief playing as a Cypher before when he was trying to find a home, And when he tried out there with Immortals, he was playing that role. But looking at this roster now with Luminosity, he became more of a fragger now, and you actually do have a Thief and a Proto instead. So the change of roles, the change of scenery, and a change of a team definitely helped him move up and surpass to his expectations and what was awaited from him as a core player to a team. So I think I like to see that right now from LG. I'm going to pay more attention to this series right now. And speaking about paying attention to the series, let's pay attention to the head-to-head. So let's bring it up here for a Proto, I think, that we have as a head-to-head at this point. And we'll talk about it a little bit. So a Proto, starting things off here with you, Veli. What do you think about a Proto versus Spirit?
Dominant. His games yesterday were dominant on the screen. And the thing is, he's not an extremely passive Cypher. You know, he's the Cypher where if he knows that you're coming with the information he's going to gather, he's going to meet you 1v1 for that 50-50. And I'm going to tell you now, that 50-50 is not technically a 50-50 because there's a 100% chance that my man is better than you. So shout out to him. And I think that is actually very important to also call that out. Now, yes, I gave a lot of credit to Rise for having a strong Cypher, but I think a Proto is just on another level compared to everyone else when it comes to him. So seeing him on top of the boards, especially rankings, when you talk about some of the best Cyphers in the game, I'm really a fan of his gameplay so far this event.
Me too. Yeah, I'd say like
I gave him a lot of praise right there, so hopefully he doesn't let me down.
We're loading a lot of pressure on you, Proto. Don't let us down, man.
A lot.
I think Spirit, like, okay, so here's a guy that I don't know a ton about. I know he's got an Overwatch background, but for me, I think he's been one of those players for Rise that I've just seen time and again fragging, like performing, stepping up, coming up in big rounds. So I want to probably key in on him a little bit as we get through this series and pay attention to him more just personally. But, speaking of what you guys said, something who I do expect and did expect coming into, a Valorant career to be successful is a Proto, somebody who I competed against previously in MDL when he was a younger player. And certainly he's still young and still considered up and coming talent. But I think he's just got so much more to give in his career. And I think he's going to bring guys like Thief and Stellar who, are solid players on that roster and certainly talented players. I think this whole group is somebody who I think I've got a lot of faith that they're going to perform and do well in. And I think Yogi's got a good squad to take Luminosity to the top. But this is going to be a test for them. And I think Rise, we're singing both these teams' praises right now, and I think rightfully so. I mean, in both instances, you could say that this is the best or the finest test that they're going to have in this tournament so far. Yeah. Obviously, whoever moves on is going to continue to be tested. But like, these are two of the better teams that I think are still left. And I can't wait to see them slug it out against each other. I can't speak any more about, whether or not we're going to see anything cool in terms of agent compositions. I told Thief in Twitch chat, like right before I guess they started to go warm up, it's like, I want to see more Reyna. And they're like, he told me, he's like, only Haven. But I hope we see Haven.
I'll take it.
Well, I hope we see Haven.
Haven is going to be a third map if needed at this point, because we have Ascent as the first map chosen by Rise. We have Luminosity, Pick and Bind. And then if we need a third map, it's going to be Haven on Rise. And to give us the action, we'll throw it to the casters right away. It's back here with Simo and Ryan to give us the action. Take it away, boys.
Thank you, Vansili, Veli, and Lex. I'm Simo. Alongside me is Ryan, who's got sub 400 gear score in World of Warcraft. We're about to hop into the next best of 3. Ryan, I hope you don't take that one to heart.
Well, with the level squish, everybody will have sub 400, right? So I'm just getting ahead of the curve at that point. I've just been trying to do Lore Master. That's all I've been trying to do.
I get it. Well, we're about to hop into a very contested match between these two teams. We saw previously Mama Mode and China win. That was a very close series. If anything, this is going to be even closer. Two teams that have backing, have support, have, their respective teams supporting them. But to be fair, I did want to highlight that Rise had a little bit of a tougher day yesterday and came out above the rest. They had Space Station Gaming that they had to take out. They had Beast Coast, and they had Gonzo Gaming, who came nearly close to coming into that second spot. And so for Luminosity, a little bit of a lighter day, nothing to really scoff at. But I think Rise got more practice in the Pulse series, and we'll see if that affects their gameplay in this best of 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair to say the Rise have had a great time so far, like winning all 4 of their group games, which is very difficult to do. You have one more game to play than the other 2 groups in there, so to do that and beat those people handedly, it's a pretty good response. They are going to be attacking first, and even just looking at the roster from Luminosity, it's stacked. In regards to other players worth noting, Spirit used to be an Overwatch player. He used to play a lot of Reaper way back in the day, so it's nice to see him. His aim was pretty ridiculous there in a meta that was very much close quarters. Now it's a case of them just running onto the site and trying to play close by holding into these little covens of areas, I suppose, on the A site. Jet as well, hunkered underneath scaffolding, and Luminosity immediately going in for a 5 versus 5 retake.
Door down, smokes down, and Luminosity are forced to play towards this heaven side. Not even bothering to go towards the door side. I mean, the pistol will take near decades to break down, so it's all up to this heaven push. And now as they start to come through, we're blinded, you're blinded, but so is Luminosity. As Steve is able to find 2 on the round, Stellar will be able to participate as well. But now down to the 2v2. The spike's ticking, and it's all up to Stellar, and it's the performance that needs to be Stellar here as he's in a 1v1. Spike's starting to be defused. Spirit, all he needs to do is swing. And swing he shall, as Rise win round number 1. And something that we haven't really even touched on is this Killjoy coming out for Rise. Love to get your thoughts here, Ryan.
Again, it's replacing the Cypher. It's not working them in tandem. This is the kind of competition that you expect to see nowadays, at least. It's still surprising that we didn't really see this as a thing with the Mamba Mode gaming. Going up against trying to win. They did run the Viper and the double duelist as we highlighted, so there certainly was some experimentation, but both these teams run in standard compositions nowadays, but I don't think people should be raising their eyebrows too much at the Killjoy being picked, because people are starting to do it more and more, and Cypher's starting to be picked less and less.
Not to mention the breach has just resurged into play after the addition of the flashpoint that has been added to his kit. 1 more for the money, and KZ is also going to find 1 more for the money as the frags are starting to come through for Luminosity. And it's the aggressive push into the courtyard that catch Rise swept off their feet. Now the 4v5 still have the weapon advantage, but they're able to upgrade at least for 1 player, KZ, who's down to just marginal HP. Sherms is going to spot him out, take him down, and even up that scoreline, putting us back to the 4v4. Still 50 seconds left on the clock, and they're going to need to get that spike over to a site and get it down soon.
The issue is that the breach is right around this corner. He does get 1 with a classic, but does get traded out from Sherms. Manages with the Ares in hand, barreling through this area that worked out so well for Rise before. A Proto, cute idea to get in behind, but didn't really have the gun nor the accuracy to help. And Thief can only get 1 at that point. Much quicker rounds. Like, yeah, granted, you've got the pistol round and then the round following, they tend to be fairly fast, but a very electric start, I think, for this game in particular, with how we're used to trying to win in Mamba Mode playing a lot slower. I could see this being a lot more like execute heavy and very quick rounds, especially with how both these teams like to play. It's just very concrete stuff, and the players involved, a lot of individual plays is going to be coming out of near enough everybody. But I am excited to see Venerated. I'm excited to see where all of the X100 Thieves players were to go. We've got Vegas in this tournament too, so interested to see these guys after a turbulent time for 100 Thieves and the life beyond it. So hopefully they can do some pretty good work here.
You touched on something very interesting, how a very electric gameplay from Rise. And while their win rate on the attacker side for Ascent is 67% so far in this tournament, having 8-4 halves against Beast Coast and Gonzo Gaming. So fair to say that this attacker side is where they are most comfortable. It's in the defense that they're going to either struggle or succeed, depending on the setups, of course, from Luminosity on their attacking side. But pay attention to how this half unfolds. You know, it wouldn't be surprising to see 8-4, but if we see more than that, you bet your bottom dollar that Rise are feeling themselves, at least on the day. So early looks, a little bit of a 5-point spread. Rise respecting the weaponry that are coming into the round. And little do Luminosity know, this is one of those rounds where you'd expect the opposition to just hold on to the same weaponry from the previous round. But Ange has an op, and he's willing to do some heavy damage with it. So far, hasn't spotted anyone out quite yet. But once Luminosity hear that op sing, they're going to be a little bit more concerned as to what's on the other end. So now they start to come through. Recon Bolt likely going to spot out at least one, and that's going to help out well as A Proto will take down one of those players. Venerated with the Odin, my favorite weapon. Unfortunately, it's short-lived as already it's taken down. Down to one final player. It's the op. It's Ange, and he's being hunted down by a pack of hyenas. The rest of Luminosity make their way towards this B site to put a round on the board.
Played it out, played it late. Venerated wasn't able to really get much done with his positioning, but it was a constant threat and kept an eye. I really like the fact that the recon bolt came out of Rise, and through the pulses, Venerated was just bunny hopping to see if he could see anybody come in through the entrance. So it's just plays like that. You don't need to be getting the frags. You don't need to be having that kind of aggressive impact. It was just how Luminosity read the room there, and Rise couldn't find a breakthrough. Like, both of these teams have had really good form recently. Luminosity struggled a lot more in their group to come in as the second seed. But you still expect them to do well. They're the only real team, as well as Renegades, that have been in some of these other tournaments, are assigned organization. And with Complexity barreling out of groups, I think there's a little bit more pressure on the likes of Renegades and Luminosity to do relatively well in this tournament, because really, they're the teams that should be in the final, in all honesty.
And, you know, you've got teams like China Win and Mama Mode, and while Mama Mode hypothetically signed, it's not to an organization like TSM or Cloud9, so they still also have a lot to prove. Thanks to taking down Titans like this, and the Titans have made their way onto the site. Spike is down, and Rise are coming out for wiser. 2 picks already down, and Luminosity forced to the retake. Venerated with the Odin, able to make it very scary for anyone hiding down below. But it's the knives that come out from Ange that are in fact the scariest. It's down to the 1v2. Venerated with the recon bolt. This is going to be crucial for him to come out in this clutch. The Blade Storm is still active. Odin is trying to do work where it can, and it's close. It's dangerously close. Okay, so one's down. The classic is now out, and this is gonna have to be a very important kill from Venerated, and it is, as he will find the last one down in hell and defuse the spike to tie us up 2-2.
I can imagine Ange tweeting later on how the right click, you know, screwed him over there a little bit. It is a bit RNG, with pretty much all of the shots missing, and it allowed Venerated to play that super well, considering he didn't really have the best gun in regards to taking on a clutch. But he made it work. He used the utility in the right way, and he played that superbly. Round number 5, both square in the rounds. Round at a bright start. Like, I'm really undecided for these teams. I never really got the opportunity to cast them yesterday, so they have relatively passed me by. But the only loss that Luminosity had was against Morning Light, and that was the 13-10 loss on Haven. They did well on Bind, they did well against Laterbot, winning 39 on Haven too. So their results are pretty good across this tournament, and Morning Light are just a crazy team that are playing at the moment. Twitch.tv/Nomad Arena if you want to see the other playoff game happening right now. But they play up against our boys Beast Coast, who have surprised me a lot. I'm pleasantly surprised to see the likes of Jammies and Vegas playing so well there, but we'll see how that goes over there. But right now, this is going to be a hell of a game. I can feel it. We're lucky, Seema, to be watching these guys.
I mean, we're even lucky that the China Win and Mama Mode Gaming best of 3 went as close as it did as well. I'm expecting nothing less here in this instance as well. Lockdown going to be brought down by Rise to help dissuade the defense from holding on, but hold on they will, as 3 will come easy, but it's the attack that are hungry. They want this round, and they've secured the A site. Spike now going down by Terms, while the rest of Luminosity are starting to gather their forces, make their way back to the site. Ange can make a hero play here. He sees one. One shot's good, but there's still more up there in heaven. Terms in the long con flank. They drop down. He needs to get involved, using the slow walk to get there as fast as possible. One is going to come through. There's still one below, and Terms clutches it through for Rise, answering back with a round of their own.
That was such a good read from Rise. A bit of a mistake from Luminosity. All 3 defenders that were left for that retake came from CT. None of them sort of pushed towards trees and A shot. they all went towards the scaffolding, and it allowed Chems to rotate around. Nobody was keeping an eye on it. If you've got that many people, you could have a nice wraparound to try and clear the site, because there's so many places that Rise can be on this attack holding off the retake. So Luminosity tunnel visioned a little bit trying to get on the site, and Rise just barreled on through them.
Early looks here from Rise. Considering it's been back and forth, looks like they're still holding on in terms of their weaponry. On the opposite side for Luminosity, regardless of what their positioning looks like, a lot of ultimates available. The Bladestorm, the Red Carpet, the Neural Theft. They even have From the Shadows if they want to get some intel on where the opposition might be located. But already, Thief has found that information. Got into a little bit of a dangerous engagement towards the A side. And the sheriffs from Luminosity tell us this is going to be a little bit of a weak round in terms of what they have to work with. Sheriffs and Ghosts likely going to be difficult, but can still make it expensive. So far, I've lost one player and maybe looking for more. Riku with the Spectre able to find Thief. There's still one more hiding in the smoke and one more towards the middle. It's Riku that holds on. 50 HP remaining, and he's going to push forward, be the body bag for the rest of his team. It's Spirit that'll pick up some of that slack, and now it's just down to Stellar. One member down for Rise, and it looks like they should be able to lock down this round. How much more expensive can Stellar make it here in this instance?
Might be a case of just grabbing one of these bigger guns that might be left on the ground over here. It's just a Spectre it'll have to do, unfortunately. Going for exit frags towards A long, but just needs to be careful of the turret that it doesn't give away his position, because Rise in this scenario are just going to hunt to make sure that he can't even keep a Spectre at this point. So the turret can easily catch him out here if he tries to be overzealous with his exit frag play. But quite rightly, he's just going to wait on here and hope that somebody walks into his sightline.
If he finds... Okay, the best case scenario is he finds one pick. That's what he would want, right? Anything more than that is huge. So that's one. Can he find the second? No, he can't. Two would have been huge because of how much he would have knocked down the Rise economy, right? But he finds one, still worth it. They've got a lot of ultimates to work with on the side of Luminosity, and they've got their weapons back in their hands. They can fight back this round. If they end up deciding to use the ultimates, it's a strong signal that they want to secure the round. So pay attention to how some of that use comes through. On the opposite side, they have something similar. They also have a Bladestorm. They also have a Rolling Thunder ultimate that's available. And we'll see how they end up playing. So far, it's been very diverse. Hitting A, hitting B, working the middle. Rise are constantly staying unpredictable, and we'll see how Luminosity react and plan for it.
Rise aren't being too smart with their plays. Just seems a straightforward execute heading over to the A site. Really waiting to see if anybody engages and pushes on them, but Luminosity is being really passive on their approach. One flash used from the breach just to see if they can put a bit more pressure onto A. But I like Luminosity's positioning here. A lot of bodies on short to see if they can catch people that are going to push in. And if they go for A main, they do have a few sight lines just to get a kill or a frag here or there. But they're mostly playing for retakes, making sure that nobody dies in the process of this A hit. To the point the Rise has actually scared them away a little bit. They're going to rotate. And Anger's just going to provide a bit of that utility to keep those three players there whilst the spike goes towards B.
I like how the setup has been unconvincing from Rise. They used a lot of utility. They pushed some of the members off. Now the red carpet as well is being rolled out. This is what's going to convince Luminosity to pull one member off. Look how much utility was wasted, and even after all of it, they still pull back, and A Proto is gonna find two on the round. That's gonna buy the rest of his team enough time. They even teleport backside. There's an Omen there. They didn't account for it. Venerated and Thief taking down the opposition. That was such a slow-moving round, but it was so thought out by both sides. Rise trying to bait out that utility, trying to help Luminosity commit towards that A site, but they couldn't make it work. They spent so much. Luminosity, they held fast, they held on. They even used From the Shadows to get to the backside of B, and they secured the round.
It was one of the reasons why they had so many people stacked on A, because they knew that if it was going to be a B hit, that they could get the Omen over there to just try and be first contact if the Cypher dies. But a Proto getting two there on an angle that really Rise should have picked a little bit more. It shows how badly that went for the attacking team. Luminosity read that perfectly. I think it doesn't help, though, when you have the attacking breach, the only one that's using utility over A. If there was a paranoia or a smoke with that Rolling Thunder, I think it would have been a bit more convincing. But they just see all of the breach abilities and go, yeah, this is a bit weird. Nobody just pushes through using one agent's abilities here.
It's usually followed up with like a jet tailwinding in, right? Like immediately. Wait, what? What? Turns with the Sheriff, takes out the dry peek into KZ. That's gotta hurt the confidence, but still, Stellar up above will stop some of those bodies moving in towards the site. They'll still get the spike down. Now the 3v3. The rest of Rise a little worse for wear on the weapons front, and the Aftershock unfortunately going to take out Anger. Spirit trying to answer back with the Hunter's Fury actually tags one, and so this round, which started out being a little cheap for Rise, is starting to pay off. Down to the 1v2, it's Stellar once again on his lonesome. And try to use the flash to push forward, sees one, that's Spirit that's gonna fall, and now it's just down to the 1v1. That's the Rolling Thunder that's committed, and fortunately for Ange, he dodges it. That's gonna be the pullback from Stellar. He's trying to pump fake, he's got it to half, but the peek from Ange, this is just so dangerously close in terms of the spike taking. Ange is just buying time, and not enough time can be bought. Stellar holds on, clutches the round. A lot of resources committed from both sides, Ryan.
He held off well. It was the play from both the breaches there, and a challenge for Twitch chat. Count how many flashes there's going to be from breach, because I'm pretty sure every 5 seconds we just heard just 3 flashes consecutively. I'm gonna have to get my sunglasses at this rate. But we haven't seen that so far today, really. We've seen a little bit of breach, but not both teams mirror comping him. So I think it is going to be a big battle happening between Anger and Stella here. KC's has been the operator again. It's going to be peeked out and does get Ange, who goes super aggressive with the little hop, but KZ's is expecting it. A great frag to start for the defenders. He's changed up his positioning onto mid along with the Cypher utility. Luminosity are playing super well on this defense against Rise, who are so good on attack and so good with how they use that utility.
Rise just holding on. Some of these rounds have probably been a little closer than they would have liked. You know, in comparison to yesterday, 8-4 halves on the attacker side. Definitely very comfortable. And it's still possible, but considering they're already in a 4v5, the odds of an 8-4 half are slowly slipping away. For Luminosity, that's a good sign. Once they get off to the second half, they'll be in the more hypothetical, comfortable position and be able to do a lot more. So Rise have worked really hard to make this half worth their while. And it starts off with this lockdown to try to push the defense out. Stellar's ready with the fault line to stop the push in from the archways, but they're already onto the site. Spirit gonna find one down below. They don't account for Stellar, who's up above in the corner, finds one, and KZ will help out with that as well, as Riku will trade him out. Now down to 2 final players here for Rise. Riku close to the door while Spirit spends some time down below in the cupboard. There's still 3 players. They need to drop down. That's the Blade Storm that comes through, finds one. Now it's just down to Riku, who's been smoked off by the Jet. That's going to be the kill that goes over to him. That's 2 in the round. 1 player's defusing. Riku can clutch. It's so close, but a Proto will finish off the round, and Luminosity extends themselves with the lead.
And I really like actually how Casey's moved on with the would be the Blade Storm, because that hop down from scaffolding to get on the other side of the transformer where the spike was planted, so dangerous with a gun because you are obviously in the air as you hop down. So using the ultimate, being first contact and right clicking whoever's there was just a great way to ensure Luminosity can get onto the site, because it was so dangerous to go through Riku, who was holding by the electronic door that you can break on through with. Some really nice plays. It's similar to the Haven match that we saw with Mamba Mode Gaming and China Wen, where all of these rounds, it's going down to clutch moments. And right now, it's been Stellar and KZs that have been so impactful in making this stuff happen for Luminosity. But everybody on Rise is a threat. It's kind of like G2 for EU, where anybody can clutch any given moment. but they have a real challenge on their hand. I'm really impressed with how Luminosity is playing. They put themselves in a nice spot to begin with.
That was a very interesting little one-way from Ange there as he jumps up. Thief, of course, going to take down one. And that's going to be another for KZ. They're starting to drop left, right, and center. And it's the right that is still remaining as the last frontier for Rise. 2 members now on their lonesome. Spike trying to make its way over towards this A site, but it's been an absolute fort to break through. Luminosity have been holding it down. It's a flawless round. Send a very important message.
4 rounds in a row. It doesn't feel like that. I feel like both these teams have been, you know, training rounds off each other, kind of like we've seen previously, but Luminosity, before our eyes, has started to pull a bit of a lead, and like I said, like, Luminosity is a team to sort of go, okay, you know, they're going to be involved in some of the other Ignition events that have come in, the invite ones, but when you look at the individual players that are now in this team that have moved their way over, there's some stacked rosters. Stella was the only question mark that I personally had, KC's to an extent, but another great start from this defense, and it's happened every single time. It's not like we're seeing KC's move and position around the map differently to play around and catch somebody on and off angle. He's just peeking through shot and getting a frag. And Rise have no excuse. They have that utility to stop that from happening with the Silver Breach and Omen. It just should not be happening like that. Stella's positioning is so nice here. He has given it away up a little bit. FIFA's gone a bit over egregious with that play. The widest peak I've ever seen, the widest peak in history. Manga is going to punish it. We're used to the flash. Be prepared. You're going to be seeing that an awful lot. Welcome to this meta, ladies and gents. And Stella now is trying to get around. Breaking this door would provide so much of a needed open to try and go for this retake. But Rise have learned. They're playing this now very passively, using A main a little bit more. There's a Rolling Thunder ready to go in a nice position. Stellar is going to be hit. There's no reaction time, even though he gets 2. But it's been one off. In fact, he's going to use his own. He's gone to anger and said, no, you. And it's actually Angie that puts the breaches out in favor. Aces is able to get 1. It's now a clutch between the Jet and the Omen. The fault line misses. He's waiting for this peak. And I think at this point, Anger knows. He's going to peek it out. The operator's good. Casey's gets his 3rd, but there's not enough time. Luminosity get in their 5th round in a row, I think. But that went right to the death. Some crazy plays. I don't know why I said Luminosity 5 rounds to the right. Rise is in 5 rounds that they managed to sort of pick apart. I think I just assumed the Luminosity were alive. That's like, oh hey, yeah, like they're the ones that won. But no, Rise played that super well. Certainly Anger, just keeping his composure, using utility to just delay as possible coming back. And ultimate's available for either side. Just 2 from the shadows. Mirrored up and ready to go. We've already seen it being used pretty well on the defense just to stack somewhere. Instantly rotate when necessary and needed. And Sherms will be happy to see this half over. And they've had an okay game, but Killjoy wants to be playing on the defense. It's been, I guess acceptable would be the word, right? You can't expect a Killjoy to be doing all the work on attack. Now the Hunter's Fury is going to be used on the attack. Yet again, across the site, just to tag where people are. Clear up some of these off angles that people could be holding on. And A Proto is just hiding behind this smoke. Sheds has made his way in. He's getting sprayed down. Stella gets free. Where is he? He's just all around the map. He's rotated around through the doors. This half ends 7-5 to Luminosity. Interested to see how the kill feed is looking. Who's been showing up, because there's been some great individual performances. Casey's with the operator on Jet. I've been super impressed by Stella on this defense too. And now I can't wait to see this Killjoy in action, if anything's really going to be happening at this point. Here we go. Let's have a gander. 16-7 is Stella. Way ahead of the top fragger for Rise, which is Spirit. Like I said, Churn's 8 and 10 isn't bad for Killjoy to say the least on attack. And Anger has had a lot. I feel like he's had more impact than the frags give him credit for. But he wants to keep up with that, I suppose. He's the only one that's not gone for a ghost. He's got armor though, so he wants to play across the whole round, right? He wants to make sure that he's surviving for attacking on a retake.
Well.
Welcome back.
Had a few issues here and there, but looks like we're back in action, and looks like I missed a lot. Luminosity winning a very convincing half in what I think should have been Rise's half to win, but looks like they've slightly fallen apart. The rest of the team here from the side of Luminosity have managed to at least get the spike down, but the man advantage is in favor of Rise. They now have the job of retaking the site, and here they come. A Proto able to at least defend one of the attackers, but the rest of the team are able to push forward. The 3v4, Riku and company trying to find an opening while the rest of these members are just willing to die on the spike. They're not going to be leaving anytime soon. First one comes in from Stellar. That's the trade from Spirit, but still need to move forward. KZ playing close with the classic, ready for the burst, and it's good on one. Can't find the second. Stellar, all he needs to do is buy time as Riku will seal the deal, and Rise winning a very important early pistol.
Necessary, really. Luminosity were starting to run away with it. You missed a couple of crazy rounds. Both teams just having clutch moments. I don't know, it's always the first game of the day, it seems to be, that teams just take chunks out of each other. Then it starts to get to a period where they each have their time in the sun. And for Rise, it's a case of rise and shine with any luck, because Luminosity have been looming over them. All of the wordplay that I can muster up in one given sentence. But it has been the Stellar show. Look at that, Simo. Like, he has had such impact. He got a free K in the last round of the first half. He is a constant threat, and it's the tale of the two breaches. Anger has that impact. It's been some really good utility, and he's got a lot of assists, more so than anybody else on his team. But when you compare that with Stellar's 17 frags and his 8 assists, how can you compare? That's just insane.
You bring up a good point. And to be fair, sometimes when you need somebody most to stand up, it's the player that you would in certain instances at least expect. You know, you've got star players in the Thief and KZ, and in this case it's Churms who's opened things up here, and 4 on the round with Riku to also answer back. It's the SMG to the lackluster Sheriff and pistol for Luminosity, and now the gun round comes through. We'll see if this is the round as predicted. Stellar will start to have his impact on the second half, and looks like the weaponry is a little awkward. I did see a couple of Sheriffs, a couple of light soft buys, or sorry, my apologies, I was looking at the wrong side. Rise still on the same weaponry from the round previous, but it's, like I said, Luminosity on the gun round, Phantoms across the board for that long distance engagement. We'll see how they decide to divide and conquer this round ahead.
Early old run for Venerated catches nothing, but they have used it to their advantage. Look at the two players that pushed up through mid. Paranoia even comes out in the attacking moment. The Thief is trying to steal himself a bit of space, but Spirit, even if he doesn't get any damage in, he just wants to be a threat. He just doesn't want to let Luminosity take that space for free. And it worked. They've backed off a little bit, but they have a nice little wraparound. They just need to check this corner, the one that A-Proto got so much damage in when they were defending. But this Raycon Bolt that's on Giraffe, there's a really nice lineup, which I hope we'll get to see, is going to shut where Churms is. The utility is going to force him out, and A-Proto can get the frag. It even gets one through the smoke. So now Anger needs to try and beat out his breach counterpart. Can at least get one, but as I said, that Stellar tells him who's boss when it comes to that role. KC's is just going to hold behind, and this is nice position from the attackers to hold off this retake.
Yeah, it's just very unfortunate for the side of Rise. Like, even if they want to push in, you see you have KZ there, ready with the flank, and then now Ainge tries to get involved, but Brian, you and I both knew that there was 2 players there playing around that backside, or sorry, the defender side, and there was 3 players playing close sight. Like, there was no way Ange was even walking away with the kill. Even if he got up and over and was able to get some damage done with the Stinger. This is the round, though, that Rise have the ability to finally show us the tempo that they've built up. First 2 rounds in their pocket, gun round, understandably out of their pocket. But this is the round that they have the ability to answer back. And considering how close we are, Ryan, 8-7, potential for 8-8 if Rise do, in fact, answer back, we are going to experience something very similar to what we saw in the previous best of 3, these close back and forth between 2 evenly tested teams.
And I think a key player is going to be that Killjoy. I sort of brought it up at halftime. The Chems had an okay half. He finished 8-10, which is fine. You know, he wasn't bottom fragging for his team on the roll. But this is where you expect him to come to be, I suppose. He has the alert bot in mid. And this is a key area, part of the map, I suppose, for Luminosity. They like to be pushing people over here. It typically means a B execute. And Rise weren't really prepared for it last time. That's why they're playing so passively now. The Eldron is just going to see if he can find somebody, but it just runs out at the worst time. So Spirit's going to rotate away. Luminosity, as soon as that alert bot is triggered, they're going to go like that.
Still kind of take their time, and actually gives enough time for Spirit to spray through. The Odin does not find success with it, and as a result, Thief will just push him, and he does so with such confidence that there's 3 members on the opposite side that he's just going to hold at bay. He has the information. He's able to even get out of there, and Luminosity have free reign of the site. And to be honest, Thief is still alive. He's still in the... He's managed to make his way all the way back to his team, while Rise, 3 members strong, have to push into the fruit market, have no idea where this sneaky Thief has gone, as he's literally crab walking underneath the box there. Gets a face full of lead from Ange. And now it's down to the even footing. The 3v3 KZ playing close with the Phantom. They're going to start to push forward. Ange with 2 op shots already, but it's traded away by KZ. The Killjoy lockdown has been destroyed. That's crucial because that's going to give so much space for the attack to come in and stop the defense dead in their tracks. As Luminosity put another round on the board.
Chems got caught out completely. It was such a quick opening for KCs. He got the frag and he instantly knew. He just dashed. He didn't care if there was anybody else over there. It was worth the risk just to make sure that that lockdown went down. Stella following up with the Rolling Thunder. He's partway to getting it back. He's almost halfway with those 2 frags that he got. 20-9 in 18 rounds, 17 rounds? No, we're on round 17 now even, but it's good going for a roll. It's been a surprise to really not see him in every game so far, to be brutally honest. But I like how Luminosity have been playing on this attack. They've put so much pressure on mid, and it's a bit of a moot area, but I remember Sliggy talking about it, just sort of saying, like, you still have to try and protect it, otherwise teams are going to do what Luminosity's doing. Just keep pounding you there.
Early looks from Luminosity, a little bit of a 5-point spread to at least playoff picks, gather information, do what they need to do. And it seems like keeping Rise antsy and anxious is the name of the game. We saw how well that worked out in the previous round and how has that continued. Riku playing towards the tree room, but the person that I want to highlight is Ange. He's playing in the wine cellar. He's going to be flushed out here by the Aftershock, and little do they know that is such a way to open that up. Get rid of the pesky Jet player that's been waiting there all along. That puts us at a 4v5. It's unfortunate that the weaponry for the side of Rise is left to be desired. And that long con flank and positioning from Ange would have been really great, but the Bucky pays off. Already those 900 credits are starting to work through. They'll start to push forward. That's a couple of shots that are good from Thief. He's going to find 1. That's another for KZ, but Spirit up above finds 3 on the round. He's the most impactful player of the round. Yes, he is! The Thrifty going to Rise as Spirit makes the Ghost sing.
Crazy. I was thinking that was a pistol round for a second there. Brings the score to 9-8, and needed for Rise to have those kind of clutch plays. this was their map pick, and Luminosity have been doing so well on it. And if we have Luminosity winning this map and then we go to bind, could be problematic for a team that was 4-0 in their groups. The Rise needed to have more rounds like that, put some of that utility to good use. Running double operator, I think Spirit picked one up at the end of the round and is keeping hold of it in this case. So they want to push Luminosity early, peek some of these angles, try and play places where they're not expecting. Now you've got the Jet that's just sat in mid, because of course Luminosity have been pushing it every single time. When the Sphere is going to come out from Venerated, it doesn't really catch too much. And it's Anshi that gets first blood. Slide down right now. Rico actually using the ultimate and just gets a face full of Cypher. But the issue is that was over on B, so maybe the rotation is going to come in, maybe expecting that to be hit. Chems is going to be hit by the fault line. It's in such a dangerous position, but the negative effects is worn off enough that he might be able to benefit from this. So certainly with the smokes and the flashes coming in, he has a nice angle, but he misses his shots. KZ's does spot him out though. Rico's got so much focus. Paranoid comes out, doesn't really catch an awful lot of stuff. Ange now with the Blade Storm in hand is going to have his position given up by the Neural Theft. People are going to peek him out. He's going to smoke. He's in an awkward spot to try and make use of this ultimate. Anger's going to be able to help us from the high ground. Spirit is coming in for reinforcements and Cavalry is well here. Spirit with the gun is trying to find something. A 1v1 between the two Sovas, and the peak is good from Venerated. Spirit was just undecided on where he wanted to peak. Luminosity yet again building a few rounds between them and Rise, but Rise typically try and take this back. But asking to do that on another Thrifty might be a bit of a tall order. Spirit's caught up with Stella when it comes to frags. Been having a much better time on his defense, has been so good on the B site, but the retakes rotating over have been Stella too. Speaking of Stella, quieting down a little bit since he got those 20 frags. Venerated is going to use the Owl Drone as they just literally bump into each other, and Rise uses that opportunity to throw an Aftershock in, catches him out completely. Good spot from Rise because they knew that he was in the Owl Drone, so the Breach just ran, got that kill, and backed out. That's really unfortunate for Luminosity. Casey's trying to take this angle, did it a lot on the defense in the opposite direction. The Omen's there to watch and trade at least, and the Omen's sat in the smoke on the defense on a shot. Ready to just poke his head out and see if he can get some intel, maybe even a frag if nobody's looking in his direction like they are now. He's rotated around the corner, so doesn't necessarily spot it, but he's got such a key position. And if the rotation and the execute comes in from Luminosity onto the B site, he can get him behind. He can catch him off completely. And this is an issue from Luminosity. They've been doing this so often. It has been working, sure, but eventually Rise are going to be aware of this. The Rolling Thunder now going to be used on the defendant side. Anger does get taken out though, so not only is he not able to get a frag off of his ultimate, he gets killed after using it. Stella's trying to be the spear when he comes breaking through onto the site, but Spirit and Chems is able to do some form of damage. Killjoy's on the back of the site, the spike is going to get planted, and unfortunately Chems can't necessarily stop that from happening. Riku left to do this retake. The Cypher that's going to have his camera and utility coming online fairly soon at least. It doesn't matter as a Proto is just going to outfrag him. Actually had his camera set up, I think, all the way on B. I think that was his camera. 11-8 now. Luminosity not too far of winning this first map, which would be a shock to say the least. I think a lot of these teams, Luminosity, Complexity, Renegades, Complexity severely disappointed, going 0-3 in their groups. They were out wicked last. Renegades are through. They won their playoff games, so they will be continuing in the winners bracket at least. So at least at this point, they're doing okay, but they don't look too good when playing. Luminosity with a nice 2-0 here would be a great confidence booster going into these playoffs, because a lot of these teams like Rise are relatively scary when it comes to their impact. And Riku getting a kill onto KZs knows that peak is going to come in quite frequently and can go on from there.
Anger who's holding down here, but at least it's down to the 3v3 for the side of Luminosity. And as they inch ever so close to finishing off this map, it's getting dangerously close for Rise to make a move. And at least we can appreciate the battle in the smoke that some of these players are acting on, but for the most part, Rise in a great position here. The 3v2, they have the advantage. Venerated Blink goes down below. That's the one that comes through for Venerated. Ange will answer back, and now they just have to deal with Venerated, who gets 2. Yes! Clutch for Luminosity. Well played there from Venerated, putting us at match point.
These rounds have been so close. And I love the way the Luminosity poised himself there. And Rise have been putting themselves in positions where they can counter what Luminosity's trying to do, because Luminosity tend to do the same things over and over again to an extent, but they just can't mechanically beat them out. It kind of reminds me of FPX versus G2, where when it comes to the smarter executes and the ways of playing, FPX tends to be better than G2 when it comes to set executes and stuff. But the adaptability and clutch factor of G2 is the reason why they're best in EU. And we're seeing, like, not to the same extent, to be honest, but Luminosity kind of showing that, like, yeah, they are being caught out doing the same things and can be punished by better teams on that. But because they're winning some of these engagements, you've got Stella doing some amazing stuff, KZ's popping up with the operator, much like he is now. It's such a key factor to why Luminosity is looking so good in this game, even though all eyes are on Rise.
Not to mention, I mean, the analysts talked about this, that just because it's your map pick doesn't mean that you're going to win. But this is Rise's map pick. Luminosity got to pick side. They picked defense to start. And now their attack is looking crispy clean as we are on match point. The 4v4. Rise have to act or else they'll be face down the barrel of being on match point here for Luminosity. Stellar with 1. Already things are looking grim for Rise. 2 down. KZ with 3. KZ looking for 1 more. Anger all on his lonesome. Has to go up against 3 players, and it's just not enough for Rise. Tried and tried and tried again, but it boiled down to a very succinct victory here for Rise. And what a start to this best of 3. That second half really started at least decent for Rise in terms of the round by round, but ultimately it boils down to a very successful finish from Luminosity. You know, they lose the pistol, they lose the second round, but after that, Luminosity just started chugging along.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, we've been singing the praises of Stella and KZ's throughout that, but Thief on 19 frags was only 4 behind him at most.
Yeah.
Like, still as a really respectable average combat score, it's not as being much of an impact, I suppose. You got KZ's getting all the first bloods. Thief got quite a lot too, but 9 assists from Venerated and Stella. The initiators doing the work there, and it was orchestrated play from there from Luminosity, both on attack and defense. We saw some pretty good stuff, I suppose. Like 8 assists on Anger is still relatively good, but it's hard to compare when it comes to the impact. Average combat score doesn't really tell you too much, but the fact that Stella's is double than Anger's is pretty integral to realizing where the key in this match was won. It's not like Anger lost the game for Rise. It was pretty much that Stella and Venerated orchestrated that win based on their assists and the way that they played.
Big question now becomes, Ryan, as we move on to this next map, which is going to be Bind. You know, the analysts did talk about if we even end up going to Haven, that Luminosity are prepared. They've got this secret agent composition that they love to bring out, and it's in the Reyna. The proof is in the pudding. It's in the arena that Luminosity like to bring out, and they love to bring forward their own ideas and their own ways to play Haven. But we're not going to Haven. We're going to Bind, which, for the record, Luminosity pick. That's where they want to go, and this could very well be based on the tempo of how we have played. Let's have a look at those map percentage win rates just to see how it really all unfolds before our very eyes. It's not looking good for Rise. I mean, it doesn't look that great for Luminosity either, but overall, Rise's attack is atrocious, 36.8%, and their victory on Bind is 33.3%. So, despite Luminosity not having the greatest success either, the biggest thing that we need to point out is that Rise is just arguably worse.
Really. Rise lost to Dignitas on this map 13-6. Luminosity game in their biggest loss came at the hands of Sentinels, which is still respectable, but they beat by Gamers on Bind 13-4. So yet again, it seems like the kind of map that they have that really shows exactly that they're capable, really. So Rise is going to be sweating on this one a little bit. It's certainly not out of the possibilities for them to turn this around. But Luminosity, I really like their comp. I think Double Initiator is going to be more meta than people may expect it to be. I think a lot of people look at Double Duelists or moving away from a Cypherless comp. I think it's all about getting that intel and just cutting off some of those aggressive off angles that people like to play. It's easy at clearing sights, and I think that's why Luminosity did such a good job on their attack, on Ascent at least, because they have the fault lines to punish people holding very aggressive angles. Recon bolts can scout out the back end of some of the sites, and from there, it's a pretty easy clean to get in and hold off any retakes that are coming in. Because a lot of that utility, if you remember, it comes online every like 35 to 45 seconds, right? So it's just constant influx of utility that they can constantly throw out and do damage. Like I said with the member mode game in China Win game, Bind is the example of that. It's the Mardi Gras of executes using that kind of utility, and why teams like FPX and Fabrican went without Sage all that time ago. Now it's standard. To say the least, it's standard.
Yeah, one more thing that I feel like I feel I need to add is, while I appreciate these statistics coming from the Spike GG, my question now becomes, I mean, to be fair, I'd have to argue that I'm probably right, that these statistics are coming from the previously formed Luminosity roster. The full mix-up Valorant team, including Physique and Hoppin. And so since then, with the addition of KZ and Venerated, I wonder what these stats would look like now if we were to play, Split Haven Bind Ascent 100 times over with this new Luminosity roster, right? I'd imagine that the two new pieces ultimately increase the win percentage on all of these maps across the board. And so what that tells me is that then, if that theory holds true, then Bind is a positive win rate above 50%. Haven is a positive win rate above 50%. Split is a positive win rate. And we already know that Ascent is at least 50, considering Luminosity had 0 to start with. So already we are seeing improvements across the board. And so I think, at least from Luminosity's perspective, these statistics are, I mean, to no fault of the Spike GG, outdated, because this roster was literally announced yesterday that they were going to change it. But for Rise, it's a little bit more closer to the truth. And so as a result, we can definitely, it's a little bit difficult to gauge how Bind is going to go in terms of the statistics that we have, at least for Luminosity. But it's safe to say that Bind needs more work from Rise. And that is scary, because you're staring down match point, you're staring down series point, and you have to act fast, because your map pick did not look like you were comfortable on it. It just looked like Luminosity played their game, and they did it well.
Not only that, I think it's a case of if they do badly on Bind, then other teams are just going to punish that, because it's a pick phase. If a team, like let's say Rise get knocked down to the losers bracket, whoever they play is going to look at it and go, our Bind is okay, but it's clearly much better than Rise's, so we're going to pick that. It might be a complete surprise. We might go to Bind and Rise might win it out. Like I said, it's not going to be a surprise, I think, if that's the case. But you look at the stats and it paints a very clear picture on where this should go. And certainly based off the form that Luminosity had there, I think Member Mode Gaming China Win is a bit of a different story because it was close and it came down to individual clutches. We saw that from Chase on the Reyna. On Bind, he wasn't really there. He didn't really have the same impact in their second game, right? I don't really think that's the case from Luminosity because, yeah, Stellar might have a quieter game, or KZ's has a quieter game, but I don't imagine all three of the players of KZ's, Stellar, and Thief are all just going to disappear from the server. It's kind of like old TSM where, yeah, if Wardella's a quiet game, Drone and Subrosa can have a good game, and they can be the carry for their lineup. That's similar in how I see this team being playing out.
Yeah, and all in all, based on everything that we've collected, our own little school project, hoping that we get an A+, it's not looking good for Rise. Luminosity, they're leading the pack. They've got that golden star on the wall, and for Rise, they're still sitting at the back of the class, pounding their heads against their desk, hoping for something to happen, something to come out from the limelight. But I don't want to count them out quite yet. They're still a good team. You know, if Rise didn't think that they had a roster on their hands that they could perform well with, they wouldn't have picked these guys up. There's obviously something here that they either A, want to work on, or B, want to give enough time and focus to see succeed. And they've got good staff behind them. Not only is obviously the team supporting them, but good management and good coaching to help this team grow. And so while Ascent was a setback, it's true. We're not going to beat around the bush about it. Here's an opportunity to redeem yourself, win 2 maps in a row, and prove that you deserve to be in the upper bracket. Because for Luminosity, convince me otherwise that Rise come back and take this to map 3. At this point, the only thing that I can think actually would change the outcome is if Rise mentally reset, play their game, and play to win.
Yeah, and I'm really interested to see how these players individually show up. We've had stats to sort of compare head-to-head specifically. Maybe there'll be something that we can see at the analyst desk when it comes down to it, but we are about to go into this game, so we're not going to be seeing it anytime soon. But like I kind of mentioned, it was the battle of the breaches. Anger and Stella. Anger did fine, but Stella just had such a good game. Like, I like singing the praises of players that, you know, oh, the Jet's doing really well. And it's like, yeah, great. You know, that's what she's meant to do. She's meant to get frags. Breach is so much more selfless, and not only was Stella setting up his team, but he was getting a ton of frags himself. That says a lot about the caliber of play that we saw. But again, Luminosity are going to be attacking. I'm hoping that we see some really good executes, use of space, but Rise is going to be playing very close. Anger not looking to set up any utility, but this shock dart might send 2 players packing with them trying to hold super aggressively. It forces them out, and Ange can at least get 1 that gets traded out by Thief, as they're still actually not pushing at all. They're going to back off, maybe try and bait a rotate over to B, or head over there themselves.
4v4 now on the pistol, a very volatile round. Spirit, unfortunately, at the last second there, the Owl drone doesn't spot him out. And so a Proto can actually work this angle. And that's why you see Luminosity actually pulling back, because they, like, the information that they just gathered off of the Owl drone not spotting out a Proto gives them the chance to say, Rise is comfortable with the information that they gathered that no one is Showers. And so let's work that angle. And this is such a beautiful read from Luminosity. If only the Owl drone could survive for 2 more seconds, this play would not be happening.
Luminosity have called that bluff, I suppose, of like, they didn't spot me. They don't think that there's anybody here. Let's use that. And it's worked out so well. And this is what I mean about the utility. All of the stuff that came out, the smokes, they're going to be there every 35 seconds. Recon bolts there every 35 seconds. Fault line every 35 seconds. You get the point. A lot of stuff is going to be thrown out consistently. And Stella still having the fault line is wanting to use it. It's going to be an awkward one. It is a 4 versus 4 retake. But all of this stuff that Rise is using is just not catching anything at all. Luminosity playing this very passively, but also very close at the same time.
Spike's ticking. Down to 3, and Rise are forced to push in, forced to issue. Anger will at least find 1, but now that just evens things out, and Stellar will be a part of the issue to make it even worse. Now down to the 1v1, and Federated did not have enough time to at least take that last player out, but it's the Spike the 6th player in the lobby that'll help Luminosity clean things up. And now they lead with the pistol, and they lead on map point.
I think Rise were waiting for some utility to come online because they did wait 10 to 15 seconds of doing nothing to just scout some intel. Maybe it was the camera that we saw coming out from Churms. He's moved away from the Killjoy over to Cypher, so this is much more standard, I suppose, to say. This is kind of like a closed beta comp, honestly. Just swap out the Omen for the Brimstone, and you've got pretty much what Fabrican were running all of that time, at least on the EU side. Better side. Anyway, if he's going to make his way on through, the camera is going to spot him at least, so I'm interested to see if Luminosity aggressively push here, or if they kind of hold their own.
Proto at least with 2, Thief with another one to add, and Rise. We're not likely going to win this round anyway with the weapon disadvantage that they had, but could have at least made it expensive. And the only one that is a little worse for wear is Thief, and he's the one that is leading the charge. 1 HP, sneeze on him, and he's going to fall apart, and Rise does exactly that. But a Proto comes in from behind, headshot onto Spirit, and puts us at 2-0 apiece. And so now this is a very important round for Rise. Weapons online, hoping to make a dent, and likely will do so. Let's see what the setup looks like. It's the 3-2 split. Presence towards the B side, at least to start. We'll see what that ends up turning into for the side of their defensive strategy.
I mean, compare these 2 rounds to the ones that we saw at the start of Ascent. Ascent was just like bang, bang. Those 2 rounds were done. These were a little bit longer. Granted, it's fine. I think that you have longer rounds because retakes are more of a likely thing to happen. But it is NA. Executes are very heavy. Certain defaults and certain plans are good. And already we're seeing Luminosity stacking a lot of pressure very early on when it comes to showers. I think the Omen is aware of this. This is something that Riku is going to keep an eye on, and Thief is there with Stella to just sort of put a bit more pressure in that direction if they can. See what they can outmaneuver and move out. And the fault line isn't going to catch much, but might provide them a bit of an opening to push into Lamps. A lot of utility wasted, so Luminosity can use this to their advantage, but if they just sort of play around Lamp, then that's utility wasted at that point.
Only 1 player spotted at least so far, but they'll commit the resources to pull back over towards the A side. KZ already with 1, and he gets involved. Oh my goodness, he still wants more, but he's going to be punished by anger. But the damage has already been done. The weapons that Luminosity were given at this round have started to come to fruition. So far, it's back down to the 2v2. Rise even things out, but Thief is in a great position with the Phantom here to make it hurt for Rise. Do they know that he's there? They're starting to peek through. Terms with 1. Stellar, last member standing. All he can do is try to stall for time. He's going to make his way. That's 1 player over there. It's Anger. And Rise do a great job of making their way back into the site and winning a very important, much-needed round.
There was some really nice synergy that came in from Anger there, and it would have been Ange on the Raze. Using the fault line and then the paint shell, where the spike was planted, there were 2 people on the side of Luminosity stacked there. It made it really awkward, and then the aftershock came in on Anger on that box. So they all had to go in one direction. They tried to Cypher Cage to protect them, but they were spotted out, and easy frags for Rise to clear up the site. Only so much that Stella could do from that positioning. Really nice retake from Rise, really important round for them to win. But we're not over yet. We have plenty more to come, and a bit of a bonus round from the side of Luminosity because they're still able to buy. It's only Thief that's going to have the Sheriff. So they'll probably want to play this quickly, surprise Rise, who might think that they'll be ecoing on this round at least.
KZ and company looking for this beast site now. Hunter Fury comes through. They spotted 1 and hoping that they were able to convert that into a frag with the Hunter's Fury. Thief blinded for eternity, it feels like. Shock Dart's going to be huge, but the flash comes through and they're looking to convert, but they don't find anything as there's a counter paranoia on the opposite side. Thief was hoping to try to catch some of these members off guard and did not. Rolling Thunder comes through. They're still looking to fight for the control. You know, I'd imagine it's not the orb that they're fighting for. It's the B site alleyway that they want to push into, as Ange is going to find 3 on the round. An absolute slaughter. Luminosity now down to 1 final player. Very unfortunate how that kind of panned out, but it's so weird to see teams fight for an area that they know that they're there, and they just keep fighting for it. That's such a weird round.
Another close one. Ultimates came online. The Hunter's Fury was a bit of an awkward one on the side of Luminosity. Didn't catch an awful lot of much. Now they're definitely going to have to eco on this round, so good read and good response from Rise to not get caught out there completely. Should be able to take the lead and pull a few rounds together. And I think they just look a lot more comfortable, I suppose. I wouldn't say that it's because they've gone from the Killjoy to the Cypher, but I imagine when it comes to practice hours, even with like meta changes and certain agents becoming stronger or weaker, they're still just going to be more comfortable having the Cypher over the Killjoy. And I think the Cypher is really good on this map generally, so it's just the Breach really that's had that incredible impact.
Against Built by Gamers, Luminosity had a 9-3 attacker-sided half. And so, still possibility to do that here, but considering how much more comfortable Ride is feeling, I think that they are in control, and you're seeing that here. KZ tries to get involved. There is a player up above it. Steve has to reload the clip. It's run dry. Does find 1 for his troubles, but now it's just up to the last and final player, held up in Hookah. And it's Venerated. He at least finds Spirit on his way out and can make it expensive on the eco. And that damage has been done. We're now moving on to the next round. Rise in the lead here. Luminosity just trying to find their footing on this attacker side.
Luminosity having ult economy on their side. Rolling Thunders have been pretty good from Stella so far. It's how it's going to be used, whether it's used to engage onto a site now that Hunter's Fury isn't going to be in the picture for quite some time, whether it's to protect from retakes. Got to use this advantage whilst Anger is still quite a while away from having his ultimate. Of course, that information isn't going to really be privy to Luminosity, but they should have a good read on it. Coming from Overwatch, in my case, reading the enemy's ults and when they're expected to have them. Such a core bit of kit that you need to have under your belt when it comes to experience.
Luminosity really want to win this round. Have a lot of ultimates that they can commit with as well. Operator from KZ going to find its mark onto Ange, and there's one more that swings. It's Churms, and he's going to send that one down to the ground. Spirit from distance with the Hunter's Fury able to find its mark as well. And now down to the 3v3. Neural Theft from the side of Luminosity, committed to try to figure out where are these players located. But now it's just down to 2. Thief alongside Venerated, working their way up to this B side. They hear the footsteps coming through. Anger smells that something is amok. He's getting from all lines. Out comes Venerated. There's one more that jumps out. It's Thief. But it's Churms that steals away his life form. Rise now leading by 2. A much more convincing roster than what we saw really on Ascent. Feels like Rise are finally finding their groove.
Yeah, Spirit's had a really good game so far. We're only 7 rounds into the game on Bind at least, but the impact has been there. The Hunter's Fury, across the map to get the frag. But also the Neural Theft that came out of Rise spotted the lurking side on the attack for Luminosity. So a Proto was trying to, do the traditional lurking role. Caught him out, an easy frag for Spirit with the Operator to get the kill. Double up seems to be working really well on this defense. Churns, though, playing super close, isn't maybe expecting the Jet to be running at him like that. But that recon bolt pretty much saved his bacon there. Spirit yet again having that impact. Stella is able to get 1 with a pistol, Venerated with a stinger, but it's still a 2 versus 3. His 50 round is doing quite a lot of damage, but they still need to get this spike planted.
Oh, at the bare minimum for Luminosity, this is a round that their goal is to make it very expensive for Rise. Oh, almost the collateral. Venerated manages to hop through onto the site. There is still one player. It's Riku, backside towards elbow. He actually uses ultimate to get there, to be quite honest. Wanted to help his team push in onto site and feel comfortable, really just committing the resources to secure the round, and Rise have really started to develop a pretty substantial lead. Luminosity, yeah, won the pistol, won the SMG, but since the guns came into play, Rise have had a pretty strong foothold on this match. And you know, Ryan, I guess that begs the question, is it Luminosity's inability to play this map or play the attacker side correctly, or is it Rise's just consistent defense that have been working out so well in their league?
I think it's just this defensive line. It seems to be just the map that favors them, really. Like, it's surprising to look at the results. They might not give credit, because Rise, like, at a 33% win rate, but I think they'd only played it 3 times, you know? It's going to be different, and for Luminosity, it might look good, but as you highlighted, it's a very new team. It's like a tribute band to the old Luminosity, and I don't mean that in a way that it doesn't really compare. It's just different faces, different people. You can't really say that they're the same team, but this Luminosity hasn't really had the same aggressive impact as they did on Ascent. So need to start pulling these rounds, or Rise are just going to keep running away from it. It would be the 3rd best of 3 today so far, as Morning Light Beast Coast over on twitch.tv/Northern Arena actually went all the way, and they're playing their 3rd map on Bind.
The only series that did not go the distance was second win up against Renegades. A clean 2-0 earlier today. This has the potential for it to be the same, but we'll have to actually see if Rise can clean up this round. So far, it's the 3v3 with Luminosity, to be fair, finally getting the spike down after what seemed to be rounds and rounds of not. Rise finally forced into a retake position. That operator player has been smoked off. A beautiful aftershock to make it very difficult for the Lamps players. Stellar, ready with the rolling red carpet. He starts to roll it through. The paint shells are making him very afraid of his life, and he's going to at least find one before he manages to escape. So much utility thrown his way, and he survives. KZ, playing from behind, has had so much time to lurk all the way around through the showers. And Luminosity stopped the bleeding after Rise has won 5 rounds in a row.
2 players dying in the same position, just sort of to the back right of sight. If you look at the minimap, basically the top right-hand corner, usually indication of like utility being used in the right way, flushing out that corner, forcing Rise to play super passively on the back end of the site. Was caught out good positioning from Luminosity on the split. Some solid stuff to keep them in it. Like a 7-5 half wouldn't necessarily be bad for Luminosity. You certainly don't want to be finishing 9-3, and that would be happening if Rise wins the last 4 rounds of this half. Not expected. Ultimates are available, Luminosity. And that flash is awkward. It does force Ange with the operator to back out a little bit. And now another aggressive Hunter's Fury, and Thieves actually used it to his advantage, getting recon. The ultimate didn't really get the frags, but it provided the opening. So well played from Luminosity. And now FIFA is just trying to be super sneaky in Spirit. Has been so good in this series so far. Misses out, I think. They just... Oh, no, they don't. That's the Omen on his team. I was going to say, 2 ships passing in the night when it came to that smoke.
It was close. It was close. I really do want to touch on what Thief did after this round is over, because he really won this round for his team. But we'll have to put that on pause as Rise are trying to figure out how they want to retake this site, if they want to at all. Venerated down to 1 HP. It makes sense that he's the first contact point, because if he falls, they can just trade him out. He's really not got a whole lot left to live for, at least for this round. But Rise going to try to escape. Those ships passing in the night finally do end up meeting each other. But Thief is not done yet. He's hungry. And in this particular instance, he may just want to eat the food that he already had on the table instead of looking for seconds. Thief, though, speaking of Thief, I like the way Luminosity play the long side. It seems like Rise have such a heavy focus on the long B side and don't really pay attention to hookah that much. And as Luminosity's making all this noise towards long and Rise is trying to fight for that control, Thief is like, you guys do realize that you just consistently give up hookah for free, and that just gives me so much more space to hop out the window and just come at you guys from behind. And that, they tried it before earlier, and mind you, Rise were, like, by the time Thief even got there, his entire team was just dead on long. And so this time it worked out because Rise was able to just hold on, oh sorry, Luminosity was able to hold on for just a little while longer, which put Thief in a great position to succeed. And so now the round ahead, we'll see if he's able to put himself in a similar position, while Rise stacking 3 and finally giving a little bit more hookah control to their priority list.
Right, and it was a good punish, and it has everlasting effects. But they are going to peek down short, and even if they go down here and see nothing, they are going to keep pushing. It could be punished here, but it depends if people are going to be looking in a general direction. They do get the Cypher. The Breach does spot it, but it's just narrowly too late. They are just going to back off and can't get punished. Can't get traded. Thief is just like, oh, screw this. I'm just going to teleport in behind and try and catch him out because he knows that they played close on this B site. So he can position around them. The paranoia isn't going to get too much, and unfortunately, Ange gets the frag. Stella with the Aftershock is able to get the kill, and Ange with the showstopper can't get much, and in fact gets killed up by Venerated. It's a scrappy round for the 3 versus 2 in Rise's favor, and it's just going to be KZ's left with the operator. Tagged up, location revealed by the recon bolt, flashed and hit by all sorts of stuff. Riku with a wallbang is going to put that one to sleep. And Rise needed to have a good round after the couple that they've lost, and that's a hell of a response to play aggressively, play proactively, punish Luminosity trying to take as much time as they wanted, to be honest.
Talked about 9-3 being a little bit of a rougher half for Luminosity. Well, the ability of a 7-5 is still close, still within reason. It's 6-4, and Rise after a very convincing... you know what? I wouldn't say convincing. It was a very scrappy round, but for Luminosity, you could see that the bargain bin has not been kind to them. And so they're going to have to make this work with as much as they can. I don't know what the economy is going to look like in the round to follow this, so very important for them to do the best damage that they possibly can, because Rise is just sitting pretty. They can afford to lose this round in the worst case scenario, and they'll bounce back in the round to follow. But for Luminosity, they are working with little to hope to do a lot. The shoulder peek, and Ange is going to miss that shot. KZ on the opposite side is able to do some damage as they work their way through the showers. Riku, unfortunately, has to back away because he's relatively the only one here. Luminosity playing both angles, showing towards the B side, showing towards this A side, really puts Rise in a very uncomfortable position. They've got a 2-2 split now. Luminosity as a team are deciding to work towards this A side. And fortunately for them, this man advantage has caused Rise into, like I said, a very uncomfortable position. The fortunate thing is that the weaponry is not ideal. That's a ghost in the hand of Stellar. He's now going to have to push in. KZ's the saving grace with the op, and he's going to be playing towards that shower side. So as the spike goes down and they play towards the truck, KZ's job is to stop them from coming forward. Thief going to find one kills. KZ still looking close. That's Terms that answers back. Thief as well with an operator, but Ange will answer back. New of them can get a lot more space. Terms now has to allow Thief the opportunity to be taken out. He will do so with the Phantom. KZ's job was to kill, kill, kill. And he did exactly that, giving us a 6-5 scoreline.
Like I said before, Rise finishing halftime 7-5 wouldn't necessarily be a bad scoreline for Luminosity. If they could go in all even, that would be incredible. I think that this team could do quite a lot on the defense. Certainly playing for retakes. There's a few more ultimates available. Anger having the Rolling Thunder, KZ's having the Blade Storm. The operator's still in hand. You couldn't be any more annoying, KZ's. You literally could not be more annoying doing that. I swear to God. But he is going to take an aggressive peek. I think Rise are sort of wise to it. But the way that the race is playing here, if the Eldron spots it, which they should, it's going to use the paint shell. The Aftershock should come out just to punish them if they're staying there. Paranoia is good as well, and yeah, it gets the kill. And should have predicted that when you have the breach against them, easy for Stella to punish.
Oh, Anger. He's going to try to swing with the Bulldog. The shock dart's going to make things so horrible for him. And now, in a position to succeed. Oh my goodness, there's just so much going on the side. Hunter's Fury as well. Anger manages to find the frag. It's just kill after kill for Rise. Looked dangerous at first. They found that early pick onto Raze, but they finished strong, 7-5. I mean, you called it several rounds ago, but I thought for a moment there, for a glimpse, for 1 second, Luminosity had that open door to get onto the site, but they just held on from the side of Rise.
I think that's what they did so well on Ascent. Like, certainly to begin with, both these teams were super close with one another. But when Rise was on a bit of a rise, so to speak, and they started to pull a few rounds, Luminosity didn't let them get too many in a row. I feel like the impact there was they were able to get a couple of rounds here or there at least. I'll have to double check just to make sure that I'm right on that. But it felt that Luminosity were never too far behind Rise when Rise had the lead. So like this is going to be an interesting way to sort of start this second half. It's a standard sort of layout, but a lot of space is being given up pretty much for free when it comes to A showers. But 3 people have stacked. I like this. They're going to check B long. If they see nobody, they're going to go for the teleporter and get the people in showers. I think.
Ooh. They're not. They're not. They're just going to... They're going to play the long way around. They're going to walk all the way through Market or through the Wishbone, whatever, and leave the rest of Luminosity to kind of fend for themselves. And so far, it's been working out. Thief will delay it down to 2. And Rise now have to deal with this push from the Market. And he's going to try to take out one player. And it's the Tailwind that is allowing KZ a second chance at life. Now down to the 2v2. Stellar knows that there's a player there. Oh my god, the defuse! No way. Venerated. They had no idea! Oh my goodness! Venerated! Where did that come from? Holy smokes! Oh, that was crispy.
So I think they thought that all of the defenders were in that area, so they were quite happy to go face them and fight them from that direction. But Venerated was pretty much there the whole time. Like, he rotated from CT, just bought it, and... Rise, come on now. And you're right, Luminosity. I thought they were going to go for the teleporter, but I like the fact that they were much more patient that way. Because I think if you're Rise and you hear all those people go for the teleporter, you then go through the teleporter from A to B. And you've got a pretty clear execute and plant going in onto that site. So... it was instinctive because a lot of teams try and do that when it comes to these pistol rounds. I mentioned FPX before. They like to do it. I think Ninjas in Pajamas have done it a couple of times before in EU. I talk a lot about EU because that's like, you know, I'm British. So that's the region that I watch. So there's no doubt teams in NA wouldn't surprise me if you see the TSMs and Sentinels of this world doing that kind of thing. It is a bit of a force buy from Rise. Like, they've got the shorties out. They're going to try and play anti-eco, catch off Luminosity. And Proto is quite happy to play passively. He doesn't have his camera anymore, and that's a really good paranoid. It allows Thief to get that frag in. Proto is going to kill turns towards showers, I think. The Thief can get free.
I mean, that's understandably a great round from the side of Luminosity. It's one of those rounds that kind of makes sense. I appreciate the effort from Rise, but this is their chance to really re-extend their lead. They had such a huge one at the beginning of that first half, really starting to develop themselves as a clear contender for this specific match. But now, as we are heading into the second half, this is at least the opportunity for Luminosity, now that they've evened things up, to be as impactful as they were on that first map. We're looking at a little bit of an ultimate there from Thief, just to gather the information that he wanted to see who's on the opposite side. But Luminosity's aggression has made Rise really question where they want to go. Like, look how forward KZ is playing, not giving Rise even the opportunity to consider this A site. And so now they have to re-clear short with utility. They're not going to have the utility to clear the site. That is huge here for Luminosity.
I've never seen the Omen teleport in that position. Pretty much where the tripwire is on the attackers spawn. But I guess it's really good at looking towards like B long and seeing if there's anybody around that corner. It's the most open bit of land I suppose you can get on Bind because it's so narrow and windy with some of the pathways. It was so long ago, but I don't know why I'm really bringing it up, to be honest, because that intel is just not going to be useful anymore. So Luminosity are having to play relatively passively. The smoke is going to wear off soon. They narrowly miss each other, but all of the utilities ready. Bows are out. The fault line's going to come through. Recon bot's going to be used on the attack and defense pretty much at the exact same time. But Venerated manages to drop it, and he's going to sit in his smoke. That recon bot is actually going to pulse at the right time. He does get traded out because he's in a common position. But these defenders are just whittling their way in. Omen's running to Omens. It's a bit awkward. Now it's a 1 versus 3 with so little time on. The spike is going to get planted in time. But if you're a Proto, you got to go for this, I think. Unfortunately, Riku's waiting there. And if it was a better gun, I think he probably would have had a better chance there. You could tell he's sort of used to the timings of that distance with the Phantom, because you expect to get the headshot and you instantly finish it off. But because he had a Spectre, it's the double take of, I got the headshot, wait, he's not dead? He's still alive? You have to go back and... It'd been awkward. Rise still maintaining this lead, but kind of like I mentioned before, Luminosity are never too far behind. They're always lurking. A lot of utility was used in that round. Certainly from the shadows, I don't really think it did all that much for Luminosity. I understand the idea, but it didn't quite work. It would have been solid info if it was a B execute, but now they're pushing on long. The Eldron is going to spot Angie, but he's aware. I keep saying Ange, sorry. They're aware that there's going to be people pushing this. There tends to be the case. Now Spirit is waiting. And arrow theft is the reason why. Have a good look at how the board is looking currently, and Luminosity are changing up their positioning, rotating more towards B, which is a big gamble, trying to spice things up, but it is going to be an A hit. All of this utility thrown out. I mentioned it before. It's the same case for Rise, and Anger is going to be the one that starts to open up the site, at least in this 5 versus 3. Vault line is going to hit just at the right time, but Stella can't really perform off of that, as Riku gets a 2k. Trying to work out where this lasts over as he has the recon bolt in hand. It just goes over. I think it just completely misses. There was a football crowd. It'll be going way, but fortunately Venerated couldn't score that. And Anger having a much better time on binds, certainly, than he did on Ascent. Actually interested in the scoreboard because I haven't really been paying too much attention to the frags that have been coming in for either team, to be honest. It's been close, and I think all of the players are having a really good game. I don't think there's anybody individually that's underperforming. It's always 2-round deficits, it feels, between Rise and Luminosity. Usually at this point, Luminosity pick up a round. You can sort of see just how both teams are trading, but Thieves are one that's top fragging in the server. Kind of like I mentioned before, Stella's bottom fragging on his team. Stella doesn't top frag, it doesn't matter too much, because Thief and Casey's are not too far behind and they can carry the game on the back if necessary. So both the breaches playing in a very different order, I suppose, with how much impact they're having. But it's nice to see Rise really rising to the occasion.
Thanks for holding down the fort there, Ryan. Looks like Rise have regained their momentum here. 9-7. Luminosity struggling to hold on here. That's going to be the name of the game, at least for them. That's the Hunter Fury that's popped, and KZ able to at least get out of the position for now, as Spirit trying to track, not nail down the pesky little Jet. And a lot of members from this Rise squad are trying to push in from the shower side. That player, Churms, trying to work their way up through the middle, will be taken out, and Rise will pull back. This B site looks to be open wide, and Ange is going to have to deal with these players. Timing is unfortunate. The neural theft will also be uploaded and give the information. All of these players are running in from the wishbone. Venerated taking out Ange, and now this round opens up. We'll see how Rise deal with it as they are ready to now to come through. Ryan.
Stella wants to clear the recon bolt, but gets taken out by Spirit at the same time. The recon bolt on the defense is good. Venerated again caught out in the smoke. Riku just is really good at spotting where these vapor trails are coming from this gun, at least. He's even able to get another kill. The retake has been held off so far. KC's has made his way onto site. Knows where these last 2 attackers are going to be, but has to control the way to get the Omen. Misses the flex shot there, and Riku gets his 3rd. Pivotal now. And Rise 3 rounds ahead from Luminosity. The most that they've been able to pull, and I think at this point we could be going to a map 3 CMO based on how Rise have been playing this attack.
Very, very possible. And, you know, for the side of Luminosity, I thought there was an opportunity at the bare minimum to really pull up their trousers and carry through, at least making it a little bit more competitive for the second half. But it seems like Rise are just in their comfort zone, and they want to take us to, yet again, another map. But, you know, if we look at even the last half, you know, it's Luminosity that have been winning these pistols. And if not for that, it's possible that Rise could have even closed this out by now. You know, winning the pistol or winning the round to follow would technically put us at 12-5 in a theoretical sense. And, you know, for Luminosity, their saving grace is that they have been able to win these pistols, and in these instances where they're down to these gun rounds, it's those ones that they've been technically struggling with. The eco here for them, pistols on lock. They need to try to make this expensive if they can. That's 2 so far on the round, evening out to the 3v3, and as a result, Rise a little hesitant. Look, KZ in the perfect position. He needs to get here in time, and just around the corner they go. Headshot's going to be good. That's going to be the Cloudburst as well, but they might try to tag him down. Oh, but he gets involved. Oh, so close in the fray. Now here comes the connector play. Stellar just trying to buy time. The spray's good. It tags a couple. Oh my goodness, Steve. Now that's the Rolling Thunder as well as it comes to Stellar. Oh my goodness, what a round from Luminosity.
That was so good, the way that they played that thrifty. They read that so well, forced Rise to pretty much fall into their traps. The Rolling Thunder used at the right time, the wall bang through the teleporter. All worked out perfectly. The aggressor from KC's on the jet. By no accounts, Rise should have lost that really, but Luminosity is showing that they are still in this. You see Rise pulling away a little bit, and Luminosity just grabs them by the leg. This is a hell of a way to finish this best of 3. The other one going on at the moment is also super close. 8-7 scoreline for Beast Coast versus Morning Light. Keep it updated on the spike.gg. I have the events page open with the game going on, and it updates in real time on how the runs are going. That refreshes anything. It's actually super handy watching this game and having that on the other monitor just to keep up to date. So a hell of a way that that's going. Yeah. Rise Anger has used all of his utility pretty much at this point. He only has 1 flash left.
No longer do we need a bug Prius for the scoreboard. You know, love Prius. You know, sometimes we want to look a little deeper at the round to round, right? So appreciate the observing, but sometimes the Spike GG is just a little better. You know, I'm gonna have to agree with you there, Ryan. But Rise looking for an opportunity to maybe sell a fake towards this A site. Owl Drone and Shock Dart, they're really trying to at least clear the way here. And Rise now going to use this as an opportunity to attack the B site. And really it's just Spirit playing Pest. He's being annoying. He's trying to gather all of their resources towards this A site. And so now it's the fake that's been sold on the A site. So they're ready. They're pushing in. Stellar and company now holding on to this site. A beautiful Aftershock might be able to catch Anger here, so he's got to stop for a second. And Venerated with the Hunter's Fury will delay this plant forever so long. Time is ticking. They need to get involved. And so Luminosity are going to go fast. They're going to go explosive. But off to the right, it's Churms. He's dealt with, though. Riku now playing with the Operator. Beautiful 2 picks there from Thief. He can't find the second. Spirit answers back. Now, the 2v2. Recon Bolt from Spirit as he's holed up in Hookah. Pulled back a little bit, but the spike's still ticking and they need to get involved. Riku has to pull off the angle, and he stopped the fault line. It's beautiful. Doesn't know that he's close. The quick shot from Riku takes him down. And now, just down to a Prado. That's going to be the Hunter's Fury. There's no way he wins this round, but he's going to recommit and try to tag down the spike. It's ticking. They need to get involved. 1 shot's not going to be good enough from a Prado. And Rise, 1 round away from match point.
Luminosity tried a bit of a gamble play there. They used so much utility to stop the spike being planted. They were trying to play for time to run out, or at least force Rise to make a mistake because they were trying to rush to get that spike planted. They used not 2 ultimates. They used the Hunter's Fury, but didn't catch them. The Aftershock forced them to relocate where they wanted to put the spike to. Should have saved that utility for the retake. It's bind. It's retake central over here. The fact that they use so much utility to deny the spike getting planted, and then the spike still goes down. Big mistake from Luminosity, and easy for Rise to hold off that retake, even though it was a hell of a strike when it came to how those teams were playing.
Ange getting involved, trying to clear out the lamps, and they've actually gathered a lot of space, very similar to how Sinatra plays, using that showstopper to clear out the entire site. And as a result, the defense giving the respect it deserves. A Proto who's going to play the Pest off to the side, but the Showers Lurker from Rise will take care of him, and now it's down to the 4v5. Luminosity staring down the barrel of potentially giving Rise over the round and putting them at match point. Ange has to avoid the Aftershock, and as a result, Luminosity may feel like they've cleared out the lamps, but those paint shells rather aren't going to be enough. So now Riku through the blind just takes out 2, and they don't even expect it. Rise, match point. Ryan, we might be going to map 3.
Wouldn't surprise me with how some of the games have been going. Luminosity, for the past sort of 5 to 10 rounds, have not really shown the same expectations or impact, really. Starting to wane a little bit. Certainly KC's and Stella nowhere near the form that we saw on Ascent. Thief, though, has been the saving grace keeping them in it this close, but there's only so much that that player can really do in particular. And it's Riku that's been showing up a lot more consistently. Battle of Omens, it was Breaches before, now it's Omens Unbind. KC's is forced to play away from the boom bot, denies that information and space from the attackers, but they're not really inclined to use it anyway. They're going to be moving over to B. So a lot of big questions going to be asked towards the Cypher and Omen. FIFA's been so good, but can he clutch it out for his team and keep them in it when it comes to binds?
You know, even if Luminosity win this round, we've got to string 4 together. It's going to be so difficult to do so against a team like Rise, who's just felt online and ready to play round after round after round. And it's a stark difference from what we saw on Ascent, and it might just be the play styles not really favoring one team or the next. KZ thought that those paint shells were going towards the little pocket to his right. The paint shells just cleared out as much hookah as possible. So now the smokes are going to start to come through. A Prado and Thief need to hold on to the site. A Prado with 1, now switching over to the showers, trying to figure out where are these players coming from. The Owl Drone and the Neural Theft. A lot of utility here used from Rise to secure the safety net here of this site. A Prado working his way through lamps, regenerated, trying to get an angle. That's going to be another shot that goes good from the Cypher, but unfortunately his reign is now over. Down to 2 for Luminosity, staring down the barrel of map point. Rise holding strong. Spike is sticking smokes down into the showers to give Stellar some space to work with. KZ playing close with the op in a 1v1 against Ange and loses it. Stellar, all up to you. Unfortunately, had the rocket arm out, and that's going to be the flashpoint that this time goes well. Ange to the right, and he will take down Stellar. Rise, taking us to map number 3.
We're going all the way to Haven, which is a map that I'm very excited to see both these teams play on. Their individual skill is through the roof. But it all went down to Riku. He had the bigger MVP performance. Not quite the same combat scores we saw from Stella on Ascent, but only 20 away from being behind. Stella, though, very different game that he had. 10 kills, 6 assists. It was mostly Spirit that set it up. I highlighted him before with the impact he had very early on in Bind. 10 assists. Crazy play from him. And everybody on Rise needed to show up at that point. This isn't an elimination series, at least, so there's still opportunity for both these teams to continue, even if they do lose. But they both want to win this. They both want to stay in the winners bracket. It's a big ask for both of them now, because I was like, oh yeah, Luminosity looks so much better than Rise, but as we're sort of getting into the business end, where people are starting to tire and wane a little bit more, that's where Rise really risen to the occasion.
Oh, that's one heck of a map, Ryan. You know, before we entered into Bind, not only do I try to evaluate the win rates of the maps and the win rates of the teams on those maps, but I try to gather a pulse of what the series feels like. And Rise just felt really unprepared, not ready to take Luminosity today in that first map on Ascent. It just felt like everything they tried, Luminosity had an answer and did it 10 times better. And boy, was I proven wrong on Bind, because that pulse, if I carried that into map 2, I was like, well, Luminosity won the map pick of Rise, and they won it pretty convincingly. And then they're going to their map pick, which hypothetically, assuming they're comfortable on it, we're hoping to do well. It was like the roles were reversed. Rise looked like Luminosity in map 1, and Rise and Luminosity rather looked like Bind, or looked like Rise in map 1. So roles kind of flopped. Now we're heading over to Haven, and it's going to be the question of which team is going to be which team, which one's going to feel weak and which one's going to feel strong. That is my ultimate question.
I have an interesting stat, and granted, we sort of mentioned before that these are effectively new, fresh teams anyway, so there's only so much you can take from them. When it comes to stats on Haven, Luminosity Gaming look pretty good on it. 13-7, which isn't too bad. It is Cloud9 after all, and they're very good on Haven because of their frag style. Rise, they won against Team Ahegoa, which again, never heard. They won a 13-3. Their biggest loss was 13-7 to Luminosity Gaming. So these guys have played on this map before. Luminosity look really good anyway. So the fact that these stats sort of suggest that these guys have shaken up before Luminosity came out on top, I think there's a clear advantage, I think, going over there when it comes to that. But the win rate was this map too when it came to that. But it's either that or split, right? So it doesn't really give you an indication of, yes, they really want to play Haven. If they really wanted to play Haven, I think they would have picked it first. So much more comfortable on this map than split, but it doesn't really mean that they are going to be crazy good on Haven. And I think that's an opportunity for Luminosity to run with it.
Well, I mean, you touch on Luminosity facing off against Cloud9 on Haven. That was, of course, with Physique and Hoppin, who back then were still pretty integrated into the roster and offered a Jet player, offered a Sova player, and as a result played around it. And to look at those statistics, I think is still valuable to a certain extent of what the other three members are capable of. In replacement now, Venerated, to a certain extent, knowing what we know about Venerated and KZ, most would argue that it is to some extent an upgrade to the roster. And so as a result, if we look at that this new Luminosity up against that Cloud9, the question becomes like, is that a win or is that just a closer series? And if the answer is it's a closer series, then Rise still will nevertheless have their work cut out for them up against the addition of these two new players. But looking at how this best of three has unfolded, Venerated, doesn't need to look good for that role to fit quite well. He calls shots. He is the solo player. Most solo players are IGLs anyways because it's easy to call shots based off of information. I mean, it's not always the case. But KZ has also been very, very surprising. And it's in that Ascent map that him and Stellar topped fragged at 23 and 22 respectively. Since then, KZ hasn't had that same success on Bind. And the question becomes, if KZ on the Jet on Haven, the impact from KZ and the impact from, I think, Thief playing the Reyna is going to be the biggest factor in Luminosity's win. Otherwise, I just see Rise coming off of a win. The momentum is in their favor. They're feeling comfortable. How are they going to clean this up? They had a great day yesterday. Yesterday, their Haven maps were good. They beat Space Station. They beat Team Shiba. I mean, it's more so the Space Station win that I'm paying attention to here in this instance. But
definitely,
overall, I think the momentum's in the favor of Rise here, especially after that win.
I think it's cool that you highlighted Space Station because they are very similar to Luminosity, I suppose, with having individual players just pop off and be the carry. I think Luminosity did a pretty good job there, but it's just like, I know I said that if one of the players isn't having a good game, then the other two can pick it up, but KZ's and Stella were relatively quiet, and I think there's not much more that Thief could do, right? And you see how it even impacts the best players in the world. You look at Cloud9, Tens can get a 40 bomb and still lose the game because that was Cloud9 way back when. Granted, they're better, but I think it shows a good example. And TSM have had their struggles too, right? I used them as the initial example of the three-headed dragon, so to speak, of Sub Rosa, Drone, and Wardell. They look a bit like toothless sometimes, right? So they have their worst games. And I think it's how Luminosity try and get that individual performance back because their executes and their retakes, for the most part, were good. But I think Rise is just much better when it comes to a consistent performance. I think the energy seemed to sap out of Luminosity as that match went on, and it was a fairly comfortable end of the game for Rise to take that win.
Bringing it back to that Space Station gaming example, you've got a player very similar to Tens, at least in that match against Rise. Broca almost dropping a 30 bomb despite a loss to Rise. And so what that can tell you is that regardless of who steps up from Luminosity, is that Rise are a very well-rounded team. And I think that it's almost as if you want to hang in the balance. Would you rather have a team with good supportive players, but then identify one or two top fraggers that just pop off, and you gamble that those two players need to pop off in order to have success? Or would you rather everyone pull their weight, but nobody's an exceptionally standout performer? Everyone has their moments, but it's relatively average or above average across the board, and you kind of hang that in the balance. And it seems like in the instance we have here, in the matchup that we have here, is that the equal balance is the one that is pushing through and plowing through. And so, I mean, that's not to say that there's no standout performer on Rise. In fact, it's more of a compliment that everyone is able to hold their own and go toe to toe across anyone. If you throw down a 1v1 in the middle of the Haven courtyard, if you put any player from Rise up to that task, they're all going to perform to either similar success or there's going to be a few variants. For the side of Luminosity, we highlighted on Bind how KZ and Stellar did not have those performances that we wanted them to have. And then you've got a player like Thief who's like, hey, I'm pulling my own. I'm going to need some help here. I can't pull this on my lonesome. I can't do this on my own. This is a tug of war that requires all members engaged. If you guys are just sitting on the couch, sitting on the bench, pick it up. Let's get involved. And so the big question for Haven is going to be, are those players from Luminosity awoken? Because Rise is awake. They are as awake as ever, and they're ready to head on to the winner's semifinal.
The cockadoodle doodling, and we are about to get in on the scent. I'm looking at those initiating players, I suppose, like the Breach and the Sova. You would expect them to see them here. I don't think Luminosity is going to be running any stuff, any different stuff. They have picked up the Reyna, moved away from the Breach. It's something that Rise have kept. So they're like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Anger didn't have a good time on Ascent. Certainly a lot better on Bind. So they're just kind of like, let's keep going. Like, this seems to be working out super well. There's no Killjoy in play. The Thief moving away from the Omen and having Stella move on from the Breach. Cover that slot. I'm expecting a lot from Thief there. He did so well on the Omen. The KZ's Thief combination is going to be super interesting. But I wonder how Stella's going to be playing, because he was pretty decent on Breach. But I imagine jumping over to a new role and having to adjust your playstyle to something a little bit differently might cause some teething problems early on in this series.
Once the tempo really starts to develop in the next few rounds, we'll get a clear indicator who has truly woken up for this last and final map of the series. Rise early looks at their setup here on the pistol is a workaround towards this A site where there's only one tripwire located and venerated up above in heaven, making sure that he's keeping tabs on what's going down below. The rest of Luminosity gambling closer towards this C site. And as a result, I like this play from Stellar, smoking off sewers. Unfortunately, no one's there. And so, he's anticipating potential pressure, and it's just an unfortunately incorrect read. And so now as they're ready for this push towards the A site, the rest of Luminosity have to work their way all the way back around. Thief is playing the doorstop for any of the other players that are translating over or pushing forward, and he's going to be taken out, which is very surprising. I didn't anticipate Spirit to recognize that, and that's going to even things back out to the 4v4. Of course, that does require Spirit to run over towards the A site, because already the action ensues. That's 2 picks here for Luminosity, and it's now just down to Ange, who's holding down the site. He needs to updraft over, and he needs to try to take out the spike diffuser, but it's Spirit! He's late to the party, but better late than never. Stellar down to 10 HP. Hopefully, he's brought the party streamers. Yes, he has! As Luminosity clutch out the pistol.
That was just insane. Like, from everything, from the flick that we saw of Spirit getting the kill onto Thief, it was freakish just how he snapped. He came in like Captain Marvel at the end of Endgame too, just barreling through, but unfortunately it wasn't a happy ending. He got snapped. Luminosity take the lead, and Stella showing up when necessary. I feel like I was heavily critical of him, being like, oh, he's not playing Breach, we're expecting him to quiet down, but it's just not the kind of player that he is. There's still a long way to go. I can imagine this being another long series, but Luminosity know how Rise You know, you're looking at this being a Riot game. League of Legends is kind of like a carry role. Like, they seem to just get better and better as the game gets later. So Luminosity wants to get that early damage in when possible. Rise is putting a lot of pressure onto mid, trying to scare away the Jet that had used the updraft to get onto the high ground and provide a bit of fear. But the little off angle that Casey's had is able to get the kill onto Anger. Doesn't have anything more than a Ghost. His half armor wants to save up for the Operator for round 3. Yet even just with a pistol, he's scary. And Rise have decided to opt away from him.
I have to say, I'm going to throw out a relatively arbitrary stat, but the team that wins both pistols also loses the round. Rise won both pistols in the first map. They lost, and Luminosity on the same effect also won both pistols and lost. And now we are looking at Luminosity on the precipice of victory. We'll see if that trend continues, but the bloodbath is what will end up coming down to a halt. Luminosity lose 2 members after a relatively chaotic C push from Rise, but they will hold down the fort. Lots of time remaining to defuse. And now Rise up the gun round. Pistol in the pocket, SMG in the pocket for Luminosity. To be fair, this is on Bind where Rise just ran away. On both instances, on the first half, they ran away with 5 rounds. And in the second half, they ran away with 3. Pause 1 with Luminosity winning, and then 3 more to close out that map. So we might see the same thing here from Rise. They might just start to speed away with this series once again here, because it's how Bind felt. Let's see if that ends up being the case.
Some relatively good results on Haven for both sides. 2 wins for Rise, Shiba and SSG. Luminosity did lose to Morning Light on this one. Morning Light, I think, favorites for doing relatively well in this tournament. Had a good showing here today, but unfortunately, you'll have to see them play up against Beast Coast. That's been continuing throughout this whole time, and been a very close series, I think. Finished out to Beast Coast winning that, though. So Morning Light go down to the losers bracket. Interesting. A lot of interesting wraparounds and results. Yeah, I mean, no, Beast Coast are great, but it's kind of like A team beats B team, B team beats C team, C team beats A team, and it's just this kind of like circle that goes through. Pretty much been par for the course for this tournament, at least. Rise are going to smoke off KZs with the Operator. Some players like to stick and just wait it out, but they're sort of rotating around. Beast's position was given up, and he's able to at least get a frag before he's eventually traded out. No, Beast's actually still alive, never mind. He's able to get a couple more kills. They had 2 players stacked over there, my bad. But the spike is going to get planted in this 2 versus 3. KC's is still alive with the Operator, but positioning is a bit treacherous as Apro has made his way onto the site, but Riku still holding onto it. The Operator shot hits and misses even. Venerated is caught out, needs to spot where this Jet is. Might want to change up the gun, but it's going to peek these angles. Paranoia just misses and he rotates around and he's just trying to catch up where this Jet is. Luckily, KZ's was low and Riku is able to get the 4K. Important round for Rise. I feel like I've been saying that so much when it comes to these clutches. The team that eventually clutches it out just needs them so badly. And Rise needed that to keep themselves in a good position going into round 4.
Okay, so 2 things to highlight. Both teams bought Operators, and Riku was the only one that was able to salvage it for his team. But that was an expensive purchase from both sides, and as a result, Luminosity having to double down to their eco here. But I'm going to imagine the desk has a lot to say about Riku and his performance over the past, especially 2 maps, really stepping up to be a highlight performer for the side of Rise Nation, who looked very quiet in map 1, came alive in map 2, and are definitely here to play in map 3. You know, I thought that was Luminosity's round to win. It was down to a 3v1, and Riku just, a man unleashed, unhurled his bullets. But now Luminosity, they're gambling with their pistols towards the C site. Rise, with caster vision, we know that the correct call would be to go towards this A site. They're a little hesitant because they don't want to walk into any traps.
It's been a series as a whole, both teams really respecting their opponents. The issue is the longer that Rise don't realize that this site is completely open for business. I mean, this Aldron might be able to get a lot. I imagine it's going to spot somebody at this point. Yeah, spots the corner. Doesn't seem that there's any more than one, though. So now they're executing onto a site that's completely empty. It's always funny, but Luminosity not budging. We're gambling on it, I suppose. A retake is still going to be difficult with the guns that they have. So they're not really rushing over to save the day. It's almost like lethargic, I suppose, with the Sheriffs. Just got to try and do some damage. Cause a bit of economic damage to Rise in general. But I'm just going to delete a proto for the server for this round at least.
Yeah, it honestly feels like an old Western. The Sheriffs are just late to the party, and the Thieves and the Rebels have already escaped, you know? They've already escaped the loot. The heist has been completed. And for Luminosity, the remaining 2 Sheriffs are a little afraid for their lives. Stellar actually picks up a Vandal, or I think he carried that, or I don't know what happened. I think I saw that at the beginning of the round. So he's likely going to want to keep that in his hands. But to be fair, pretty much a flawless round. You know, despite Stellar surviving, a lot of Rise members able to keep their weaponry alive and well, and that's a good sign. Ultimately, that's a very, very good sign. Because for Rise, now they get to carry that over, and considering that the attacker side has recently for Haven been a little bit unsuccessful, it's the defender side that kind of caters to Haven now. It's a great start for Rise. They have a flawless round, they carry their weapons over, and even if they lose, they'll likely have enough to buy in the round to follow. So, looking good for the next few rounds here for Rise.
If they can pull that lead, that's been a difference. Luminosity have been able to keep up with that pace for the most part, but that was the key thing about... KZ's getting a kill onto Riku. That was the key thing about why Rise were able to win Unbind, is that they were able to pull a bit of a lead, and Luminosity just couldn't keep up in the end. A bit of a stack going on C with 3 players waiting over there. It's a gamble. But you got the Reyna over on B and a lot of respect given on A. They're quite happy to play retake on A, which is quite interesting. There's a lot of space that Rise is going to be careful and considerate with, but they will punish you if you're not contesting those areas. Something that I think Luminosity are aware of, and now having to play super passively on A. Can't contest A long or even sewers. Just got to throw a little bit of utility and hope that they don't come that way at that point.
Oh, that's so unfortunate. Oh, no. Turtle has definitely not made it to the water. But at least for Rise, they'll even things back around. It's the 4v4 that they can now work with. A-site, unfortunate for Spirit, he's caught trying to sneak his way through, and it's not going to be as sly as he originally thought. KZ already with 3, and now starting to get involved. Whoa! KZ showing him how it's done. One more player remains. It's Ange, and he's going to run away with his tail between his legs. What a play from KZ. We asked for it. We asked for it in our own little pregame, Ryan. We asked for KZ to step up, and he's using the tallest step ladder I've ever seen in my life.
I have no words. This guy's been great. I think there's a big list of jet operator MVP players that you could mention. The KZ's is becoming my favorite. Like, very easy to overhype some of them. For example, Mixwell, I think in G2 is like decent, but KZ's is looking so good, and FIFA's not too far behind. This is working out really well for Luminosity. They've got the lead again, and Venerated yet again pulling out a very early Hunter's Fury. Usually the rounds where that doesn't go that well, they tend to lose, which is a common trend that we've seen. Luckily though, Stellar is able to get the first frag, giving him the man advantage. And Rise meandering around the A site, it feels.
Spirit gonna have his location revealed, and it's back to the drawing board for what feels like for Rise. Had a decent opportunity in that previous round, but it's relatively fallen apart. Their plans foiled. I had the brief opportunity to highlight that the attacker side on Haven has just flipped. Used to be a map that favored the attack, but maybe teams learned how to play it. Maybe the lack of Sage is making it more difficult for the attackers. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but the defense definitely feeling more comfortable. So early looks at this A site push. Riku, I think, is ready to gather information or teleport behind enemy lines. He's going to be taken care of, but now as they start to funnel in, and early early pick, but it's rated by Venerated. Stellar playing close, and that's going to give his team a lot more space to work with. And now that he's taken out of commission, this could be a lot easier for them to push on in. Now the 2v3, Luminosity on the back foot. That's going to be another shot here from Ange. KZ unfortunately tries to get up and over and they have a little bit of a different look. Now hopping forward, it's the op battle. Peak goes sour. Ange going to get the better of KZ. You highlighted how much you like him, how much you like KZ. But I think Ange wants to be a part of the conversation just as much.
I'm kind of happy that I called the whole when a Hunter's Fury doesn't go well for Venerated, they lose the round. And they had the advantage there. Luminosity should have gone ahead. Because this A site has been hit so often. It's a real mix, but Ryza keeps themselves in it. These two teams never really able to pull a lead, and the ones that do tend to win the map that they are on. Now it's going to be another save, I think, on the side of Luminosity. Pushing down C along, but Riku is there keeping an eye. Sees a couple of legs, a couple of toesies, and able to get the frag onto Venerated. Jet's still there. Casey's is wanting to back off a little bit, but Thief actually, with the Sheriff, is able to kill onto Surge. Angie picks up a 2k, and a lot of space is taken, and a lot of control with just one member of Luminosity alive. Things are looking good for Rise, as expected.
Oh, KZ's so close. Playing with fire. He steps through the doors. Anger going to take him down. Luminosity going to be able to have a little bit of a more competitive round up ahead as the weapons are back online for them, and KZ hopefully able to afford an op moving into this 8th round. And as we near the end of this half, seems to be a little bit more of a back and forth, a little bit more life on both sides, to be fair, Ryan. And I think this is the matchup that we were initially hoping for on Bind, whereas it just seems like map 1 and map 2, one team rolled over and the other team had a whole lot more fun. This, a lot more competitive. Luminosity, like the setup, early looks down banana, can't find anything, so the fruit comes up empty-handed. Casey has other things in store. The grocery store has some fruit as well, but he will also not have enough money to buy the fruit that he needs. The sewers will sour, and Ange will be able to answer with the picks of the zone towards the door side. So now Spirit has the Hunter's Fury trying to clear out all of these different angles, and now the troops go marching away from this A site. Luminosity committing 2 of those members over to hold down the fort. But Rise, they're on the run, and they're now going towards the C site.
Venerated's there waiting for them. Recombot's actually going to go out on this wall, and it's super smart, actually, because the pushers come in. He has information of people pushing onto the site, at least, and he gets the person that's planting. They're expecting him to maybe back off a little bit, but him and Proto have made so much space for each other. Stella's even added to the party as Chums takes out his Cypher counterpart. The spike is just on the site, not hunkered down into the ground. And Spirit could take this 1v3 if he wanted, but it might be wiser and safer to just keep a hold of this Phantom and try and go again in the next round. Rise have been able to win a few rounds in itself, right? So the money should still be decent. I don't think there's been too much damage done to Luminosity. Excuse me. It's been a turbulent one. Like, it's just been all over the place for both these teams. It suddenly got very late for me as well. We've just hit midnight, which shows that they're getting towards the end. We're getting towards doomsday for either of these two teams.
I just thought for a second there that your sub 400 gear score on World of Warcraft was coming through, but it was just a cough. That's okay.
Yeah, it's not a monk-esque cough. I think it's just like I ran out of breath.
Well, to be fair, one of these teams is going to run out of breath, as eventually somebody has to be the victor of this series. And we're 4-4. There's no clear winner yet. There's no one that's pulling ahead of the pack. It's been 2-2, 1-2-1. Just back and forth with Rise seemingly having the better end of the previous 5 rounds. And we'll see how that starts to develop as they're looking once again for an A-side push. But Luminosity, they smell this. Support to the sewers and 2 on this banana side. The cyber cage is going to be used to give them safe passage. Oh, like Gandalf, Thief wants to say, you shall not pass 2 headshots! That's what I'm talking about. KZ now providing that firepower. Flashpoint going to try to stop Thief dead in his tracks, and he does so. Anger taking him down, but it's the man disadvantage here for Rise. And just like Gandalf as well, somebody had to sacrifice themselves, and in this case, it was Thief.
Yeah, but they're not coming back with white hair. Unless you're Jet, you already have white hair. So it's not really too much of a difference, really. Stella is actually going to use stuff from the shadows. Spots a couple of bodies. But he's quite happy with his positioning. Casey's is keeping an eye on A long. Stella does spot out Churns coming out of sewers. He's going to smoke and protect it. And whilst there's 30 seconds left on the clock and a chance for Rise to push on through, might be keener to save. In fact, I think, you know, Ango was thinking about it. But they decided to just hold on to the guns. Like I said before, Rise were quite happy to save in the last round. They still had money, so they still had that option, I suppose. But now, much more important rounds. I don't imagine economy is going to be good for them going forward. They're going to have to save, force out what they can going into round 10, sorry. Luminosity take round 9 and score 5-4.
Considering the implications of how Haven has been played out over the course of this tournament and how much it does cater towards the defensive side, Luminosity don't want to go even in this half. You know, a 6-6 is very likely considering how proficient Rise has been as an opposition. But once we swap over to that second half, it's Rise's responsibility to steal away the lead. See if that ends up even happening. It's possible that Luminosity have a few tricks up their sleeve with their double duelist composition. Still, those are the question marks that I'm having as we are nearing the end of this first half. And early looks Rise, once again, want to be involved in this A site. And I think by now Luminosity would have learned that having 3 members towards this A site is actually very beneficial because Rise very rarely wants to get involved with the C site. There's a lot of utility there. There's a lot of players that would be able to at least delay. And so this A site should be a hard read from Luminosity. KZ finding an early pick, now backing away Stellar. His job is to stop this push from the sewers, not making a collaborated effort on both fronts. KZ waiting once again. Another shot is good. How many will fall to KZ's gun? 2 are down. Tailwinds out to safety. And now there's just 3 that remain for Rise. They're trying to make their way in, but the smokes are deadly too. Stellar right through the dark cover finds another. Now 2 remain. Held up behind enemy lines, trying to get the spike down, but can't even inch forward. Another spray from Stellar. This round is falling apart at the seams for Rise, and Anger's the only one remaining. And he's got a world of hurt that he's got to go through. Finds one, tries to run away. There's a Cypher coming in from behind. That's going to be 2, maybe 3, but a Prado that'll come in from behind. Luminosity putting us at 6-4.
Really well played from KC's on the Jet. It made me laugh because he was holding onto that corner, dashed behind the box where the Omen was, and Stella just freaked out. I think he assumed it was an enemy because he started shooting him. It's like, oh, it's you, never mind. Like, it's so dumb, but Luminosity playing a lot better. Rise can't even get a foot on the sites. Ever since we saw that C-Execute come in, where Luminosity were able to stop the spike being planted, they look good there, and I understand why they use a lot of ultimates and a lot of utility very early. They don't tend to like to play retake, but I think because it causes so much damage for Rise just to take these fights beforehand, try and face the enemy instead of just letting them have the site and play retake. It's interesting. It's a gamble in some cases, and Luminosity have made mistakes because of it. But certainly on Haven, it's worked out to their favor, and it's why they're starting to pull a bit of a lead. They could go into this half 7-5 or 8-4. They're going to be happy bunnies.
I like the setup here from KZ. We'll see if Riku gonna play with or flirt with that idea to go towards the C side. But the one time that Luminosity gambled towards the middle of the map, you know, as far away from A as possible, it's once again Rise still interested in that idea. And the fact that there's a lack of pressure from Luminosity might give Rise a little bit more of a comforting sight to go towards his A side. But once KZ, oh man, that was so close for Cherms. I had no idea he was fighting with death, but this gamble from Luminosity trying to read their opponent. Rise are only 1 chapter. and only one letter, only one book. It's the letter A. That's all they want to do the entire half. A. Like Rammus from League of Legends, but instead of OK, it's just A. That's all he says. So Rolling Thunder to get onto the site, Ryan. Here they come. As Stellar's already taken out of commission.
Spirit chugging along with a big chunk of Odin. He's just going to hold behind him. He just wants to make use of it, I suppose, at this point. It's a 5 versus 4. The fault line is just going to miss onto Thief. I think he wants to get a frag and then might pull out the Empress. Might do it beforehand, but really needs to open things up. There's a lot of pinging, trying to work out where people are. They have to cipher on the Sova, so they're probably waiting for the Rico bot to come in. It's a good one. And the Proto is able to try and get one, but it's opened up for Thief, who manages to get free. I think he has the Empress in play at this point, but KZ's is able to sort of finish it up. Yeah, the ultimate was in use from Thief as he's able to get free. I love how that played out. 7-4 as we go into the last round of this half. Luminosity looking real good doing it.
You know, we saw some initial first rounds from Rise. Once we had those guns in play, I think they did a really good job of figuring out strategies that worked, at least to the beginning. But I don't know what happened. It's like their brain forgot the rest of the alphabet, except the first letter. And that's all they've been interested in since some turning point like, many rounds ago.
I just think it's how my tortoise reacts when we bring up Kale. That he's just one trap match. He just loves Kale because he's a tortoise and he doesn't really know. It's kind of like this. Just keep turtling towards a little pilgrimage, I suppose. But they're getting plants in and they're doing some form of damage. But Luminosity on this defense just looked really good. But granted, they did okay on the first half of Bind and then started to lose dramatically once they swap sides. So this is still not done and dusted just yet. I think Luminosity 8-4 would be exceptional for them. They're going to be really happy with that. But the idea that Rise can't bring this back in some meaningful fashion, they win this round, win Pistol, and then win the round following, they're even on score. So it's not like they're super far behind, but they would really, 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 really want to win this round.
They do have From the Shadows and the Neural Theft available. Bladestorm popped from the side of KZ, and he's heading his way over towards the A site. And the one time that they even think about gambling from Luminosity towards this A site, they're like, nah, it's C. We prepared for this. We've been planning for C the entire half. Let's actually make it work. The early picks here goes to the side of Mango. He's going to find Venerated, who's trying to set up in the smoke. But a Proto is going to answer back, maybe even with the second. Where's the third? You have one player with, that's playing down long with the operator. But it's KZ playing close with the knives. Those butter knives are coming in hot. There's down to one final player. Oh my goodness, that would be scary to see Arena barreling down long and having to switch to the classic. And Thief gonna send those tea bags right to the dome. 8-4 Luminosity. I like the attempt there from Rise, but when 5 players barreling down one side, there's only so much that can go wrong.
It's not Halloween yet. It's not spooky season. But as we go into halftime, I did want to shout out Twitch chat who've just been sort of chatting amongst themselves at this point. I saw somebody in Twitch chat earlier on say, like, we're just watching some tier 2 Valorant and vibing, and I feel that. I feel like that is a great sort of approach to take. And there's been some great games, exciting. It's been nice to vibe, I suppose, but it's also been some very intense matches. We had Mamba Mud Gaming earlier on beating out China Win in the third, well, best of 3 going all the way now. Same case here for Rise and Luminosity. Luminosity are in pole position to take this one, but Rise now on the defended side might have much more of a showing.
This pistol very important for both sides. You know, before I get all analytical and serious, I want to thank you all for vibing with us. You know, me and Ryan, we really like Valorant. I hope you like it too. Hopefully you've been enjoying the show here today for the beginning of the Pulse Series playoffs. And KZ's not going to be enjoying the rest of this round as Anger will tell him to sit this one out, and now the 4v5 retake, make it a 3v5 retake, make it a 2v5 retake. Riku on fire as a Prado trying to answer back for the sins of his fallen comrades and just duels out Anger. Outsmarted, outlasted, now down to the 1v1. They're in the red zone, HP is minimal, and a Prado with the 4K on the round. Luminosity extend their lead. The pistol won. Now the SMG potentially on the precipice. They could be at 10-4. Rise will have a lot to work with, or sorry, not a lot to work with to catch up.
Luminosity win this. They're 10-4 up, and that is a tall climb now for Rise to pull it back. It's a shame. I was expecting them to really come into it, and there's still more rounds to be had, I suppose. But what is this, 6 rounds in a row that Luminosity being able to sort of win? Thief, KZ's a Proto, only 2 frags to separate them, but Luminosity look unplayable, I suppose, for the enemy team when they have multiple players on a bit of a roll. It could be any of the players and any amount of combinations. And Thief on this Reyna has been great, just carving his own path, pushing onwards, is able to get another one. Wasn't expecting the Sova, who's just happy to let his friend die. He's not even going to trade, he's just dial up instead really at this point. But he is able to get a kill onto Stella. But Thief and a Proto were there to trade anyway. There was only so much that Rise was able to do. 10-4. Steep climb for the Rise.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's in the name. It's in the name, Ryan. It's in the name. What are they going to do? Rise. I mean, that's what the fans would hope for, at least in this instance. You know, this is a round that they statistically should win. It's not often that the third round of a half goes to the favor of the one that has spent less than the other. But if that happens, Luminosity, I think, are just going to walk away with the win. So I would hope that Rise have an answer. Stop the bleeding, at least temporarily. That's a great way to start. Thief going to sit this one out for the rest of the round, and now it's just down to the 4v5. KZ trying to be impactful here with the Operator. Does not have an opportunity yet to make it sing. 3 stacked from Rise towards this A side, and they're going to stop this push and actually get a little bit more involved. Ange, going to be the first responder to the case, has the Vandal in hand, wants to get a little bit more involved against his opposition. But he's just holding on, making sure that the sewers are clear. And KZ has a lot more space actually to work up this A angle. See what ends up happening, because it's a little strange in terms of timing, as I don't think they anticipate a player being so heavy and far down banana.
Rise have certainly had the bigger impact, I suppose, when it comes to if they can get first blood, put them at a man advantage. They tend to be able to run with that. A lot of the time, Luminosity can get a frag, but they still can lose the round based on how abilities and utility gets used. But Spirit is able to do more damage. The Operator's just chomping through. Can't get a fourth, but Riku's there to help out at least. KZ's having it all to do. A 1 versus 4. Why not go for it? They've won so many rounds on the bounce. If he's going to save, I'm going to call him a coward. That's what his name translates to. Yeah, coward, get out of here. Go for the clutch. He wants to keep hold of his gun at least, but they're on the hunt. They're going to kill him. They're going to get him.
He needs to at least get 1. Oh. Yo, okay. That would have been, if KZ guessed that would have been sick. That would have been so sick. But for Luminosity, that was a very heavily invested round. That Operator does not, you know, Operators don't grow on trees, and if they did, we would have a very Valorant meta would be brutal. 5 Operators each round on both sides, that would be no bueno. So Luminosity down to the pistols, a couple of Sheriffs I see in their hands. Let's just see how expensive they can make it. It's obvious that Rise are gonna, I mean, they should put this at 10-6 and carry on this double op positioning that they have in Spirit respectively. Let's see what they do. Let's see what they're capable of here. How these Sheriffs are able to do some damage against Rise Nation.
Camera spotted the jet that's dashed out. Is darted up. Good job it doesn't show the pulse the teammates around you, because that's a lot of info that they'd be able to grab. Riku's just watching back as a nice little off angle, and even if he doesn't get a frag, Ange is going to watch it too. Well, I like this utility. They're breaking their way out. Riku's able to get one. Spray is awkward. An Ant with a pistol can at least kill KZ. So we've got a keen eye on this doorway that the rest of the attackers are going to back off and run away. But Chems is still able to get the frag just as they turn it back in. Going to try and hit the B site. But based off this and the positioning of Rise, this could be a flawless round for them. Luminosity just wanted to do a little bit of damage if they can.
At the bare minimum, get that spike planted. That's just going to be credits in their pocket. And with Venerated down, Stellar doesn't really have a lot of opportunity. I mean, I would have been planting the spike already, to be honest. At least gets the headshot. There is somebody behind him, so he needs to be a little bit careful, but not much you can do. Appreciate the effort. Don't make it a flawless round, and Rise will carry their weapons on. Economy continues to roll deep for this defensive side. Luminosity only need 3 to close out this round, so if they can just find some openings, play some cheesy strats, or just, you know, this is it's in situations like this that you don't want to get desperate. You know, you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're playing differently just to try to squeeze out these last few rounds, because ultimately that could be a goal and that could be a play style. And I think for Luminosity, they're going to keep their head held high and do their best to close this out. So far, Rise have found a footing. They've got a round buffer that they can work with. It does look like we are in a pause, as Riku just unfortunately not there. That's okay. We'll try to provide you with an update as to why, when, who, what, where, when, all that good stuff. But, you know, for the side of Luminosity, how, that one as well. I forgot that one. We're close. We're close. 10-6. 10-6.
I think that Rise could actually surprise and pull this back a little bit more. The last few rounds have looked good from them. Granted, we saw one real full gun round, which Rise got, and they got the round after, which was an eco. But I think if, like, they can't be feeling too bad about it. They are quite a few rounds behind. But if they can build some momentum, that is where Luminosity kind of like loses its form completely, to be honest. That's where they kind of look clueless in some cases, right? When Rise is able to get a bit of momentum. And I don't think that's really going to matter too much if they are that many rounds behind. If Rise can bring it back to an even score, I think Luminosity are going to struggle to sort of bring this back. So this is key for Luminosity to win. They are going to play aggro. Ange does push in and is even going to dedicate the Blade Storm. And a great start. Luminosity have struggled, like I've mentioned, when it comes to them losing the first player when it comes to a first death. Chems, though, not looking in that direction. I don't know where he's looking, but A-Pro is not only going to punish that, he's going to use the cops for some information, and Luminosity striking whilst the iron is hot.
Man, I don't know. Maybe that wall was super beautiful for Cherms. You just wanted to appreciate the detail. The little detail that the map developers have put together. So, you know, all of a sudden now Luminosity are staring down the barrel of an advantage. Got the 4v3. Blade Storm is activated, so Rise obviously want to come out the victor, but they're in a very uncomfortable position. Luminosity playing exactly how this should be played, back towards the courtyard. All of those members are in that area, and all they need to do is just spray down the spike if it gets, you know, confused. So here they come. Owl Drone comes through. Stellar backside. I like this play, but they smell this out. That's Anger. He's starting to get over. That's gonna be the shot from Venerated. They're confused. Where is this Omen? AF cannot get the job done, and Luminosity. What a play there. What a play from Stellar. Teleports behind enemy lines. Yes, Anger reads it, but it's just too late. They get disoriented. They get divided. And when the spike's ticking that fast, Ryan, what are you going to do?
Yeah, and Rise would just completely split apart. Good threat control, I suppose, from Luminosity, seeing as we've been using a lot of World of Warcraft examples. It's kind of how it felt. Just keep them in different directions, pull them away from the spike, especially. But that came from the misplay from Cherms, who just... Unfortunate timing more than anything. It's not like he through the game or whatever. It wasn't that tragic. He just looked away at a really awkward time. The Hunter's Fury now from Venerated. If he gets a frag or gets some intel, it's usually a good thing. If he gets diddly squat like he did then, it tends to not go their way. So that could be a telegraph of what we might be seeing in a second. But it has provided an opening to hit the C site, and Thief is taking divine intervention into his own hands with that kill onto Riku.
That's so unfortunate. That's 2 rounds now that some members of Rise have been forced into very unfortunate timing. You know, and so now we've got Thief. He's going to be one of the first responders towards this garage side, and as a result, it causes Rise to be a little cautious moving forward, and Venerated is going to make that even worse. Anger does end up finding the answer back, but KZ is going to play upset here. That's going to be the first member that comes through. There's one more. KZ puts Luminosity at match point, and Ryan, I don't think the economy is looking good for Rise. We'll have to see. I think actually, yeah, never mind. They'll be fine, but this is so close. Luminosity can end this here and now and answer back for a brutal map on Bind and really show us that they were, in fact, the better team.
They played well. I think Ange could have had a better read. Like, he ran into, I think it was Thief in the smoke before, but then was caught up by KC's there. It's kind of like Luminosity are playing well. They're playing super close right into the face of Rise, and they're struggling to respond. Certainly now that they are so far behind on this result. Luminosity, though, exceptional play from them, going up against a solid team when it comes to the performances in the group stages. They'll be happy with this win. They'll be wanting to take this throughout the weekend and keep their heads in the winner's bracket if they can sort of win this out. Riku's going to be using it from the shadows to get onto Heaven just to protect. They're expecting the A execute. But because of that ultimate, Luminosity might just go, hold on, maybe let's back out. Especially if Anger could get a kill here, that would be a disaster. KC's is up on the map for them. That's a big issue for Rise.
Not to mention that there's a Sheriff and a Bulldog somewhere on Rise, and that means that the weaponry just less than ideal. Ange is going to try again. He's going to start to build back on the lurk that Anger started, and so as a result, I don't really know what Rise are doing. There's a great crossfire set up here, and as a result, they're going to try to punish strong. The spray is good. Luminosity staring at series point. 2 players remain here up above with the Odin. That's the spray that's going to connect, but he's 20 HP, and KZ just unrelentingly staring at that angle, refuses to give it up, and Spirit, last player standing, 28 HP, gonna try to spray through where he can. Venerated predicting that positioning up in Heaven, and Luminosity, a very strong finish from the roster. You know, it was a rough map on Bind. We're gonna have to be honest with ourselves here, Ryan, but they redeemed themselves in the hands of KZ, in the hands of Thief, and in the hands of a Prado as well. Just overall solid performance all around. I don't think Rise can be too upset at what they were able to accomplish. I think all they need to do is go back to the drawing board, VOD review, and figure out what went wrong in that series.
And I like I sort of mentioned at the start of this series, I kind of missed out on Luminosity. I didn't get to cast any of the games when they were playing. I was, casting other games, I suppose, at the same time. I think I found my favorite team in this tournament. The way that they played, the fact that each of them has such individual skill and frag power, that a Proto who's had, a decent series so far could come in and top frag in the server alongside Thief, who moved over from the Omen to the Reyna seamlessly. I said at the start of Haven that, it might be a bit awkward for him to adjust playing one type of agent to the other. Absolutely not a problem at all. KC's getting 5 first bloods. The Jet Operator worked out so well for them. And it, like you mentioned, Rise didn't necessarily have a bad game, but it was just kind of like pound for pound individually. Luminosity just had every form of advantage that they could take. It deserved to win that series, I think.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap things up for me and Ryan here. Doug and Dust will be carrying over into the last best of 3 of the day. But to break down that series between Luminosity and Rise, we've got Vansily, Veli, and Lex. Boys, take it away.
Great job, guys. Thank you so much for your great casting for today. We are back at the desk to break down LG versus Rise. LG looking again to continue their run to the grand finals, as we kind of had a taste of in the group play. This time, though, it wasn't as easy as we had a very good series between these two teams, guys. So to start things off here, let's break it down map by map. It's, again, rewinding a while back, but I want to commend how good Stellar was on that first map playing as a Breach. His record was 23, 19, and I think 9. I wrote 3, but I think he had more assists than that on Ascent, playing as a Breach and an Initiator on top of that. We talked a lot about breaches for other teams not really fragging as much and being more of a utility player, but how did he play this more differently for Stellar's case that showed so much more pressure and high scoring and basically helped LG get that first map?
I didn't know if Lex wanted to talk first, but so Lex, I can't hear you. I can't hear Lex, but you know what? I'll go first. I don't know if Lex's mic is working, but you know what, man?
Yeah, my mic's muted. It's okay. I was about to say, you want me to go first? We can talk for hours about breach dip in this matchup. Sorry, I got really excited. I was like, nice, it's coming to me.
Love breach. All right,
Fair enough, man.
All right,
No,
Lex, go ahead, man. Take it.
I think that's like a storyline that a lot of the time we haven't seen in Valorant, is like Breach really kind of carrying the success of teams from map to map. And I think on that map 1, you mentioned Stellar's performance just individually fragging, and I hats off to him. I mean, they came out with a tremendous map 1, and I think I'm looking at it right now. Anger wasn't exactly popping off with his Breach, but throughout the rest of the series, we understood that. I mean, and I think this is in the middle of map 2, maybe. I think the three of us had this conversation, which was that, like, in terms of the differences in Breach play, and I think this maybe is more to do with the individual players themselves, but also the roles that they fit within their team. Anger, somebody who is veteran of the Counter-Strike scene, has been elected to lead this team on Rise. And so he, being in the Breach position, I think it's Eccles for Liquid that plays the Breach most of the time for them over in Europe. IGL, like being the IGL in that position with Breach is great. You have a lot of opportunities to set teammates up for flash assists, for clearing corners, for pushing offers off of the angles that usually your team gets burned by. On the other side of that, Stellar was playing, and something that I think we have seen in the past from both NA teams and EU teams, is a solo Breach, somebody who kind of plays for himself, maybe has a rotator or a site player with him around the map that he's flashing for. But typically speaking, Stellar was making plays left and right off of his own utility, which is tough. You have to have timing down. You have to be comfortable on Breach as far as the agent goes. And he really stepped it up on several different rounds on Ascent map 1 for Luminosity. And I think, like, that's an interesting aspect of this BO3 and this matchup, was we got to see the two different styles of Breach being played, and maybe not throughout the entire series to such an extent. But certainly the IGLing Breach with Anger almost feels like he's setting himself up for I mean, dude, he's setting himself up for like round securing plays, and he's setting up his teammates to get into the bomb sites with the entries and flashes. Sometimes we saw rounds where he was doing all three. So to me, I thought that was a really cool map 1 example of, and Vancil, you're the one who brought it up, man, was just like, hey, we got 2 Breaches in the server. They're both playing seemingly fine, but one is finding frags and finding statistical success, whereas the other was not. And I think that's a phenomenal storyline that maybe we'll get to see with LG throughout the rest of this tournament. And I guess Rise isn't out, right? So we're going to see more of them as well.
Nope. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, you know what it is, man, Silly? I'm going to say it, man. Stellar was amazing. Placement is everything, and that was his bread and butter. So his placement in that first half, his job was to hold down that tree area. He wanted to make sure there was no pressure, no rotations, no flanks coming in from catwalk. And the moment it happened, which happened often too, 2-3 players at a time, you have all that. You had Flashpoint, you had the fault line, you had your aftershocks. You could slow down players. So not only can you burn all that time, but you could blind them, you could disrupt their vision, and you could get the kills. And that's what he did. By the end of that first half, by the way, he almost had 20 kills. I believe it was 16 and about 9 deaths, but then racked up about 10 more deaths in the second half. So on defense, he knows exactly what to do on Ascent, and that's why he was so successful, man. It was great play.
Yeah. I think there was many times where he was able to go behind players and get kills from the back of the tree too, right? I remember one round specifically coming from the tree, 3 players running across, trying to get through the door into the A site, boom, backstab. And it came down to having to rely on teammates of Rise to actually get some clutch rounds to be able to get as many rounds as he could on the attacker side. But then the defender side, or should I say, when Rise had the attacker side for their side, it was a little bit more difficult on their end. For me, I thought they were a little bit readable, right? I know Ryan mentioned it a bit too during the broadcast. Was they tried to sell a fake with Anger as the breach heading towards the A side entrance through a Rolling Thunder, all of his flashes, but everybody was getting ready to move into the B site. But the thing is, first off, nobody was affected by any of the Rolling Thunder because they played a passive A take, so nobody rotated. And the secondly is when Rise went into the site, they didn't clear corners. So a Proto who was playing towards logs was able to get like a 2K, 3K, and you still had Venerated there with an Odin to just spur everybody down and just take down the site. So very readable at that point, and it seems as though it was very exploited by LG too. How did they take advantage of that throughout that second half? Sorry, go ahead.
Taking advantage of. Okay, go ahead.
Of the defender side of. Yeah.
How can you ask that question one more time, Van Silly? I apologize.
Yeah, I was confused.
I'll summarize it in a single sentence. I'll summarize it in a single sentence. LG basically ran away with the attacker side versus Rise on that second half. And how did they do that? What did they exploit?
All right, so one thing that Rise didn't do too good with, fake pushes, right? So we all saw it happen. I think it was Ryan that was breaking it down, right? Ryan was cracking me up. Great casting, by the way. He was calling out the fact that we had a lurking breach by himself, and he was using fault lines and everything else. And it was in areas where it was like, okay, what the hell is he doing? There is no reason at all for Breach to be using this right now, because if he was using it and it was for a reason, the push would be coming in. I think it was Simo that added in after that. He was like, yeah, you would hear Jet dash in and try to make plays. So the one thing that the opposing team did so well, they didn't rotate. They held strong. And that way, the fake rotate that came in, Rise tried to push in. They pushed right into, I believe it was, Proto got a 2K holding an angle. Venerated was able to come in for a kill, and Thief got one of his own as well. So ultimately, the fake was so bad that they really depended on that team not to rotate around. And the moment they stepped in, there was no flashes, no blinds, no smokes to protect them. It was just a wide open lane. And a Proto, he dogged on it, man. It was wide open. Rise was extremely readable. And that was really bad. They didn't have any information at all on their end for that type of push.
Throwing fakes in this game really does seem like hit or miss a lot of the times with just how the stance and the posture of the other team is. Like that, we saw a couple fakes that were so successful yesterday, and it was usually like Omen smokes paired with Sova arrows, and then you have somebody over there physically being there throwing the fake. And I think that's part of what became obvious after you've seen it once or twice, and especially, and this is for you, Anger, if you're watching out there, especially after they've been able to check the notes, watch your VODs back. If they know that you as an IGL are somebody who is the tell, if you're somebody who's usually the read on your attack, most of the time, the first con that's going to be coming out of the other team is like, Breach is over at A, flashing, nothing's happening, don't rotate. And that's as simple and as fast as it happens, to where all those defenders are like, yep, was thinking about it, but just going to lock my eyes over here at B main. And it cost them a few different, well, I can't think of anything as bad as that round, but still, it's one of those next time when they go back and they rewatch that VOD, you know, it's one of those things that I think Luminosity was doing a very good job of recognizing where the reads were. And I don't know if that's a tribute to Yogi and what he brings in his coaching, or whether the players themselves have taken it upon themselves to kind of do their homework. But it definitely is. As a viewer, as a fan, I like want so badly. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're throwing this fake, and I want it to work. When it doesn't, it's so obvious and it's so painful. It's like, oh, they're not gonna rotate, man. And you just watch it. It's like a train wreck. But you know what? I think Rise had a lot of in control rounds, and we haven't started talking about bind yet, so I won't get into that. But they had a lot of rounds that showed
we're getting into that right now.
Sure. They showed competence on Ascent, but it definitely seemed like LG was just in control of that game from, I wouldn't say start to finish, but second half, it seemed like there was never an attempt from Rise to really have a comeback.
Yeah. I think it really came down to their moment of salvation on that map bind. And just before, when you talked about what Yogi's doing as basically the coach, I mean, they have a coach themselves, right? They have trainer, and they play with their coach yesterday as well, and they did quite well with the coach too.
Did I say
they had a great scout? They have a great trainer / coach in trainer, no pun intended. But now we get to talk about bind, where we had a moment of salvation for Rise at this point, because on our previous segment we talked about how we wanted a little bit more synergy and help from other agents that could maybe help Raze, for example, play a lot better on a map like Bind with the new how the meta is currently changing. And what I think about more specifically in one of the rounds, I'm sure you guys will talk about it too, is when they retook a site on a Bind. I forgot which round it was, but it was still a paint shell being thrown on the right side of the triple box. You had a fault line being thrown at the boxes too, and an aftershock on the left side of the triple boxes to flush out 2 players on a pulse plan position for them to go for a retake. So synergy was definitely there at this point here for Rise. Lex, go ahead.
Right, I think
I gotta cue you guys
on
better.
Bind. Hey, it's all
You
good. I kind of figured this was
We
coming to
work
me
with
anyway,
V-Mix, man. It's all right.
yeah, it's all good. I think on Bind, like it's kind of one of those typical compositions that you see where you have Raze and another agent over at A playing retake. And I for the longest time, I've always felt like Breach has a place in that composition to be somebody who dominates U-Haul, who sets up the retakes with flashes, and obviously he has usefulness on attack too. But you know, it seemed like that was going to be a test for Rise on their defense, and I was like, you know what, like it seems like it's having some mild success, but they really rounded out the defensive half where, you know, synergizing both those agents, like you said, they're able to basically play off of each other in the utility that they're throwing a breach stun. If they're blind, they're not going to be running from nades. Like those kind of very subtle details when it comes to just, you know, yes, the frags are nice, but like what got us to that point? And sometimes it means just making an attacker who's expecting a bomb site that's going to be free and everything's great and the smokes are down. There's no sage wall these days, but like that is enough to just throw off like a player's confidence moving into a bomb site and entering somewhere. And especially, I mean, once you're blind and you hear the Raze nades coming out, you know, I think it just opened up like players like, I think it was Ange on the Raze, like to really kind of frag out. I mean, for lack of a better term, just kind of like have room to wide swing, take some gunfights. And I think on Bind, especially when we're talking about like A executes and B executes, finding a clean gunfight where you're not going to be traded quickly on defense is a lot of times the challenge, which is why a lot of teams opt to retake. So seeing Breach and Raze played together or, you know, conversely, just like Raze and anything else to maximize her value, man, like it just makes Bind a little bit easier, I think, to approach when you almost are expecting to retake at least one bomb site.
Yeah, and Van Silly, like we saw several other instances of like a Marvel team up between Breach and somebody else, right? Before I get to what happened on Bind, the first map, something I left out, even when Stellar wasn't just going wild, just at tree, right? He noticed it was slow. He would use that long distance flashbang to clear out courtyard, and he let his opper dash out, get the kill, and come back. That's team up number one. Team up number two, I think the round you're talking about was a retake at B where Breach used a Rolling Thunder and he pushed him with Raze. When that moment happened, I theory crafted just so many takes and just clears in my head. So people aren't going to be able to move fast. They can't shoot. Toss frag grenades, put in your bot. You know, you have the showstopper. There's so many options that you can really put out there. Even throw Sova in the mix, right? Breach is awesome, man. And I'm just happy that now we're starting to see a lot of them. It's about damn time.
Yeah. Let's definitely come in anger on his GL for that one too. Go ahead, Lex. Sorry, you had something.
Shut up,
I apologize. It's just V-Mix again, man. I was gonna say though is I mean that's kind of like what, and this is totally off topic now, so I'm gonna keep it quick. But like we're talking about Sage being removed and Breach being introduced, right? Well, Sage was the synergistic agent that you would use with a Raze, a Phoenix, whatever. Yeah. You drop her slows on contact, then you throw the Raze nades in, the satchels come out, everybody dies, and suddenly everybody's complaining about Raze. On the other side, you've got Breach now, who has fault line, who has these abilities that are going to stop players in their tracks, stun them, and basically leave you susceptible to like. I mean, that's a force multiplier of the highest degree in Valorant. Breach's issues up until now, had a lot of issues to do with the fact that he wasn't exactly the most versatile agent. So now that we're seeing him get these buffs, I mean, the strategy across the board for Valorant should be getting better, should be getting more impressive to watch and more terrifying to play against. So I'm not surprised to see Breach being played at this level, like successfully, you know, in contrast to maybe Killjoy, who we still haven't really gotten to see, I don't know, come into her own. But I'm loving the way Breach is changing the meta for competition.
Yeah.
No, definitely. I think definitely Breach is going to be overpicked over Killjoy now. Now that Killjoy, her nanoswarm is louder, it's more visible. And Breach, you know, when we first had him before the buff, everybody was just talking about how, yeah, the flashes are good, but the rest of the kit kind of sucks. Now you're starting to see, yeah, Breach is actually really good on retakes for the Rolling Thunder, but
I
there's
was a
also
day one
instances,
fan.
and let's commend Anger for that one. The Rolling Thunder
Yeah.
on offensive takes of map control was really good on defense as well. Notably when he's throwing a Rolling Thunder down towards long B, and then they have a raise, and I think even a Sova double peak, right? And they were able to bring the raise over to the other side of the B long at teleport to actually have anybody moving forward right after the retake long B on the attacker side. It was a backstab kill, right? But not only that, you're starting to see how the aftershock is actually very useful now. How many times have you seen aftershocks in corners where you kind of have those tight angles? We always talk about the tight corners when you're trying to do 50-50s, but you still have to clear it so deeply into the corner where an aftershock, it helps you into not having to check so deep anymore. Go for a tighter angle peak, a kill, and even have a better crosshair placement, maybe for a swing for a spray control, for example, right? So we're seeing that the kit is developing a lot more for Breach, which is really, really good. And let's come in Anger. We talked about how low the win rate was at 33% on the attacker side for Bind, where they have a low winning rate on Bind as well for Rise. And now it shows under Anger's helm and under the Bears as a coach. It helps them moving forward with two stand-ins, by the way, two tryouts to still bring this to a third map, and it's not even over for them yet, right? So let's go on and summarize the last map very, very quickly too. My simple question for you guys as well is, starting with you, Veli, why do you think on Haven they went on A for the A side pretty much 90% of the rounds for Rise at this point?
Oh, Rise. Oh, it was simple. You got to look at, I believe it was the third round where Luminosity, they gambled. Keep those boys out of Vegas because damn, right? they sent 5 people over to C. And that was when Rise got their first taste. They're like, okay, if they're going to leave A open like this, let's start hammering it. So they do that. They win that round. They go back to A the next round by also having a lurker middle, keeping, I believe it was 2-3 people away from A. So it was like a 4v2 battle at A. So they're thinking in their heads, all right, we can play him now. We can play him. We got him in our palms, right? We got him in our hands. So the next round, they went to A. They caused all this commotion and chaos. When they saw the other team fully rotate to A, they said, deuces. Everyone went to C and got the plan. The only person that rotated was Sova. He got clapped immediately. So it was basically a pace that was set from round 2 or 3 that set the tone throughout the entirety of the first half. And that's the reason why they were so successful. And it's also, it lets us know, or it paints a better picture for us to understand why they really fell off in the second half, right? They didn't have that crutch to continue winning rounds on.
Yeah, I wonder about their defense. I was more, when I was analyzing, more kind of paying attention to LG's successes, but I wonder what was going on wrong for Rise. Do you have any thoughts on that, either of you? Because, you know, I'm looking at the stat line, and it didn't seem like anybody really had like a great game, but nobody really had a terrible one on either team.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, like we had a few epic jet battles. The Sovas went head to head, but at the end of the, like, maybe it was just a few different rounds that strategically, you know, I think 4LG came up on top, but man, I think the one real standout player for me on the side of LG for that last map on Haven was a Proto. I think it was the second half pistol. The game was still close at that point. Second half pistol, he came in with a multi-frag and they retook it. And I think it was just like the very next round or maybe a round after that, he came in with another 3K or a 4K. Having that level of just like energy in your team, you can only imagine how their comms are. You've already slugged out 2 long maps in another long BO3 where this like didn't seem to be like anybody was going to be running away with it come out at the end of the first half there. So if you're able to step up for your team, even as one of the better players, pick up a nice round on pistol, get comfy and clean up both anti-ecos, it's really, really tough to break that level of confidence. And I mean, hats off to Rise for trying. Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's not as though it seemed like anybody on Rise was playing exceptionally bad. I'm sure you'll hop on Twitter and see a dozen different, man, I really let my team down today, whatever. We're going to get back and be stronger tomorrow. But like for real, that was just a close game where it seemed like LG was just really feeling confident and they stepped up. well played to them.
Yeah.
No, definitely. I think they all played very, very well for LG because despite us pumping the wheels of how Rise has been playing well, they haven't dropped a single map in group, and now they dropped 2 versus LG. The reason why we haven't talked about LG that much is because they've been dominating from what we've seen on stream so far, and being able to finally see good competition for Rise, it shows how much room or how much progress they've done since the last pickups or in the pickups and the trials that they had for this event here. So props to Rise. Hopefully they continue forward. But speaking about LG, we're still going to continue and witness how they're going to do in this tournament because that is coming up next. So we're going to take a break. And when we come back, it's going to be LG versus Beast Coast, which is actually going to be a very good game. And this series is brought to you by AK Racing, AGX Pay, and Fair Play. So with that, the analysts and hosts will take a break.
He actually gets involved, dunks on to GMB, and he's gonna dunk on player 1 as well.
Pulls in for Immortals as well, and the wall bank comes through from Kohler, so the headshot, a sick falls down. 2 more to go. Alive with Sinatra, but just under a 4K coming through. That's a 1 versus 1. Sinatra here, can he get the ace clutch? Recon Owl to come out. Now he spots him. He's straight through the box. He gets the drag onto Asuna, and the ace clutch coming in.
Who is this guy? Like, this isn't even Valorant. This is just Wardell's mind. He's just dominating that much. Drone opening up the kill for Wardell to get the ace kill. That's exactly
Wardell's like, give it to me, give it to me.